Now you're sitting in a room full of people, and you know deep down that every word you say, every gesture you make, can shift the entire atmosphere in your favor. You hold the power to influence, to persuade, and to control the decisions and actions of those around you, without them even realizing it. This is the power of manipulation. And it's not just reserved for the cunning or the cruel. It's a skill that once mastered can change your life forever. In Master of Manipulation, 40 Dark Tactics that will make you a master manipulator, I'm going to show you how to harness this power. You'll learn how to tap into the hidden depths of human psychology and use it to shape your world in ways you've only dreamed of. These aren't just tactics. They are secrets, guarded strategies that have been used by the most influential and powerful people throughout history. But let me be clear. This isn't about tricking people or playing games for the sake of cruelty. It's about understanding human behavior at its core and using that knowledge to rise above the noise, to get what you want, and to make sure your voice is heard in a world that often drowns out the quietest among us. The dark tactics I'm about to share with you will help you become someone who doesn't just react to the world, but someone who shapes it. In this book, you will discover 40 powerful techniques, each one designed to make you a master of influence. These methods will show you how to win people over, how to manipulate situations to your advantage, and how to control the narrative in any environment. They're not for the faint of heart. They're for those who are ready to step into a new reality, a reality where you call the shots. So ask yourself, are you ready to take control? To move beyond the boundaries of what you thought was possible, to awaken a power within you that's been dormant, waiting for the right moment to rise. Your journey to becoming a master manipulator starts here, and once you've mastered these 40 dark tactics, you'll never look at human interaction the same way again. Welcome to Audiobook Vision. Before we get started, be sure to hit that subscribe button like this video and share it with others who are eager to transform. Your likes play a huge role in helping us reach a wider audience, so don't forget to show your support. The more likes and shares we get, the more this channel will grow, and together we can make a bigger impact. And if you're craving more, be sure to check out our channel membership for exclusive content and perks designed just for you. Let's get started. Gaslighting. Gaslighting is a deeply manipulative tactic that erodes a person's sense of reality, leaving them questioning their own thoughts, memories, and perceptions. It is not just a strategy, but a profound breach of trust that can have lasting emotional consequences. Understanding the nature of gaslighting, its mechanics, and its impact can illuminate the insidious ways it infiltrates relationships, be they personal, professional, or social. Imagine waking up in a world where the sun rises, but someone convinces you it never happened. You remember the warmth on your skin and the brightness in the sky. Yet every time you mention it, you're met with dismissive laughter, sly remarks, or outright denial. You're imagining things, they say. Are you feeling okay? That never happened. Over time, you begin to question yourself. Was the sun real? Did you actually feel its warmth, or was it a dream? This is the essence of gaslighting, a slow, calculated distortion of reality that undermines your confidence in your own experiences. At its core, gaslighting is about control. By sowing seeds of doubt, the manipulator creates a dependency where their version of reality becomes the only anchor in an otherwise uncertain world. The victim, stripped of their ability to trust their perceptions, turns to the manipulator for guidance, validation, and understanding. This shift in power dynamics often happens so gradually that the victim may not realize they are being manipulated until significant damage has been done. Gaslighting often begins subtly. It might start with small denials of events or facts. "I never said that," or "you're remembering it wrong." These statements seem harmless at first, but over time they accumulate into a pattern of contradiction that chips away at the victim's confidence. The manipulator might follow these denials with feigned concern, such as, "Are you sure you're not overthinking this? You've been so stressed lately." This creates a dual assault on the victim's reality and their emotional stability, making them feel isolated and unsure of themselves. The power of gaslighting lies in its ability to isolate. By making the victim question their reality, the manipulator cuts them off from their own instincts and often from supportive relationships. Friends and family who might validate the victim's experiences are framed as unreliable or even harmful. "They don't understand you like I do," the manipulator might say. In extreme cases, gaslighting can lead the victim to feel entirely alone, unable to trust anyone, including themselves. The emotional toll of gaslighting is profound. Victims often experience anxiety, depression, and a diminished sense of self-worth. They may feel trapped, confused, and helpless, as though their world is unraveling, but they can't pinpoint why. The manipulator's control becomes a lifeline, even as it tightens into a noose. This paradox, seeking comfort from the very source of harm, is one of the most devastating aspects of gaslighting. Understanding gaslighting is crucial not only to recognize when it's happening, but also to dismantle its power. Knowledge is the first step toward reclaiming autonomy. Recognizing patterns, seeking external validation from trusted sources, and building a strong sense of self can help counteract the manipulator's influence. Gaslighting thrives in silence and confusion, breaking that silence by seeking support. And clarity is an act of defiance that weakens its grip. While gaslighting is a powerful and harmful tactic, it is not insurmountable. Healing from its effects requires courage, support, and time. For those who have experienced gaslighting, rediscovering trust in oneself is a journey of rebuilding what was systematically dismantled. It is a reminder that no matter how distorted the reflection, the truth remains within. 2. Reverse psychology. Reverse psychology is a clever dance of persuasion, a subtle yet potent technique that plays on human nature's inherent need for autonomy and defiance. It is not merely a suggestion or a nudge, it is an artful manipulation of will, turning a person's instincts against themselves. Understanding its mechanics reveals both its power and the delicate balance required to wield it effectively. Imagine a scenario where a child adamantly refuses to eat their vegetables. The parent, exasperated, could beg or threaten, but neither approach might succeed. Instead, with a knowing smile, the parent declares, "You probably wouldn't like these anyway. They're for grown-ups." Suddenly, the child's curiosity is piqued. What's so special about these vegetables? Why are they out of reach? Before long, the plate is empty, and the parent's seemingly careless remark has achieved what direct pleading could not. This is reverse psychology in action, an invitation to defy, cleverly disguised as an offhand dismissal. At its core, reverse psychology taps into a universal trait, the desire for independence. We all want to feel in control of our decisions, our paths, and our lives. When someone tells us we can't or shouldn't do something, a spark ignites, a quiet rebellion that whispers, "I'll prove them wrong." This defiance is not inherently negative. It's a testament to our yearning for agency. However, it is this very drive that reverse psychology exploits, making it a powerful tool in the hands of a manipulator. The beauty of reverse psychology lies in its subtlety. Unlike overt persuasion, it does not demand, instruct, or implore. Instead, it plants a seed of doubt or curiosity, allowing the other person to believe the decision was entirely their own. For instance, telling a friend, "You probably won't want to join us. It's going to be pretty low-key and boring," might be met with an indignant, "Who says I won't? I'm coming." By downplaying the appeal or outright dismissing their involvement, you've turned their natural resistance into a willingness to engage. However, reverse psychology is not without its risks. Its effectiveness hinges on an intimate understanding of the individual. What motivates them? What triggers their defiance? Misjudging these elements can backfire spectacularly. For example, a teenager might react to a parent's reverse psychology with apathy rather than rebellion, thinking, "Fine, I didn't want to do that anyway." This illustrates the delicate balance required. Reverse psychology is as much about reading the person as it is about crafting the message. Beyond personal interactions, reverse psychology is often employed in marketing and advertising. Consider a luxury brand that claims, "This product isn't for everyone. It's only for the discerning few." Suddenly, potential buyers are drawn not just to the product, but to the idea of proving themselves worthy. The suggestion of exclusivity and the challenge it presents taps into the same psychological need for validation and independence. The result? A surge in desire, fueled by the belief that choosing the product is an act of rebellion against being dismissed. Emotionally, reverse psychology can evoke a mix of feelings: curiosity, defiance, and even pride. To the person being influenced, the decision feels like a triumph of their own will. Little do they realize that their autonomy has been subtly directed by someone else's clever orchestration. This interplay of emotions can make the experience empowering in the moment, even as it underscores the manipulator's skill. However, wielding reverse psychology responsibly is crucial. While it can be an effective tool, its misuse can erode trust. When people realize they've been manipulated even indirectly, it can leave them feeling duped or betrayed. In relationships, whether personal or professional, this loss of trust can have long-term consequences. Like any form of persuasion, reverse psychology should be used sparingly and with consideration of its potential impact. In the end, reverse psychology is a testament to the complexity of human behavior, a mirror reflecting our deep need for autonomy and individuality. It reminds us that sometimes the most effective way to guide someone isn't to push them, but to let them feel the pull of their own will. The key lies in respecting that will, even as you subtly shape its course. 3. Choice restriction. Choice restriction is a fascinating and subtle tactic that revolves around the illusion of freedom. It thrives on the human need to feel in control, crafting a clever facade of autonomy while skillfully guiding someone toward a predetermined outcome. This technique doesn't shove decisions down anyone's throat. Instead, it gently nudges them toward your goal by shaping the framework within which their choices exist. The genius of choice restriction lies in its ability to make people feel empowered even as they unknowingly surrender control. Picture this: you walk into a restaurant and the menu is a masterpiece of curation. Instead of overwhelming you with countless options, it offers just a few, each sounding more delectable than the last. You feel in command, confidently choosing the steak with peppercorn sauce. But what if I told you the restaurant deliberately limited the options to ensure you'd pick one that maximized their profit margins? You thought you had the freedom to choose, but in reality, you were gently funneled into making the right decision. This is choice restriction in action, an artful balance of influence and subtlety. The brilliance of choice restriction lies in its psychological impact. Human beings are inherently drawn to the concept of free will. We want to believe that our decisions reflect our desires, preferences, and agency. When options are presented in a way that seems open-ended, we rarely question what's missing or why the options exist in the first place. This is why choice restriction works so effectively. It capitalizes on our natural inclination to focus on what's available, not what's absent. Consider a common example: Parenting. A parent trying to get their child to finish their homework might say, "Do you want to do your homework now or after dinner?" Both options lead to the same outcome. Homework gets done, but the child feels in control because they got to choose. The key here is the absence of a third option, such as not doing the homework at all. By limiting the range of choices, the parent ensures the desired result while maintaining the child's sense of autonomy. In relationships or negotiations, choice restriction often takes on a more strategic form. For instance, imagine someone saying, "Would you prefer we go with Plan A, which saves us money, or Plan B, which takes less time?" Notice how the framing eliminates other potential solutions, steering the conversation toward outcomes the speaker finds acceptable. The listener feels they are weighing their options, but the underlying reality is that the deck has been stacked. Marketing and sales also rely heavily on choice restriction. Walk into a store, and you might find a product offered in 3 sizes: small, medium, and large. Research shows that most people gravitate toward the medium option because it feels like a safe, balanced choice. However, the medium size might have been designed to be the most profitable, with the small size priced unattractively and the large size seemingly excessive. By restricting your options to 3 and strategically anchoring the prices, the store has influenced your decision without you even realizing it. Emotionally, choice restriction can be both empowering and disarming. The individual being influenced feels a sense of control because they're the one making the decision. However, the lack of genuine freedom can become apparent if they later realize their options were limited by design. This revelation can lead to feelings of frustration, betrayal, or even resentment, depending on the context and stakes involved. Using choice restriction responsibly is vital. In situations where the stakes are low, like guiding a child to make healthier decisions or simplifying a menu, it can be harmless or even helpful. But in high-stakes scenarios, such as legal contracts or significant life choices, manipulative use of this tactic can erode trust and damage relationships. Ultimately, choice restriction is a reminder of how easily the human mind can be guided. Under the guise of autonomy, it challenges us to think critically about the decisions we make and to question whether the options presented truly reflect the full range of possibilities. For those who wield this tactic, the lesson is clear. Influence is most effective when it respects the dignity and intelligence of those it seeks to guide. 4. Guilt. Trip guilt is a powerful emotion, one that has the potential to shape decisions, alter behaviors, and even redefine relationships. A guilt trip takes this potent emotion and uses it as a tool of influence, turning past mistakes, real or perceived, into a lever for control. It's a tactic as old as time, one that thrives in the shadows of regret and remorse, pushing people to act out of a sense of obligation rather than genuine desire. To understand the emotional weight of a guilt trip is to grasp the fine line between persuasion and manipulation, between remorse and exploitation. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack on a long journey. Each misstep or mistake you've made is a stone someone has placed inside. At first, you may hardly notice the weight, but as time goes on, the burden grows, pressing down on your shoulders, making every step harder than the last. A guilt trip does exactly this. It piles on emotional weight, subtly or overtly, until the person buckles under the pressure and complies with the manipulator's demands. The essence of a guilt trip lies in its ability to awaken a sense of moral responsibility. It often starts with a carefully crafted narrative. "After all I've done for you," or "You owe it to me because of what happened." These words act as hooks, pulling the listener back to moments of perceived wrongdoing or indebtedness. The implication is clear. If you don't comply, you're heartless, ungrateful, or selfish. It's an emotional chess game where the manipulator's moves are calculated to evoke guilt strong enough to outweigh logic or personal preference. Consider the dynamics of a close relationship, be it between partners, family members, or friends. A parent might say, "I sacrificed so much for you, and this is how you repay me." Or a partner might lament, "If you really loved me, you'd do this for me." These phrases strike deep, often leaving the listener feeling as though they've fallen short of expectations, even if those expectations are unreasonable. The guilt becomes a prison, trapping them into agreeing or acting in ways they might not otherwise choose. In professional settings, guilt trips can be equally damaging. A boss might say, "I trusted you with this, and now I have to clean up your mess." Or a colleague might remark, "If you don't step in, you'll let the whole team down." These statements aren't just about addressing mistakes. They're designed to erode confidence and create a sense of obligation. The guilt becomes a driving force, compelling the individual to overextend themselves, often at the expense of their own well-being. What makes guilt trips so emotionally effective is their ability to exploit vulnerability. Guilt, by nature, is introspective. It forces people to examine their actions and question their morality. A well-placed guilt trip turns this introspection into a weapon, wielded by someone who understands its devastating impact. The victim, often unaware of the manipulation, feels compelled to make amends, even if the situation doesn't warrant it. But the emotional toll of a guilt trip is profound. For the person being manipulated, it can lead to resentment, self-doubt, and a lingering sense of inadequacy. They may comply in the moment, but over time, the repeated use of guilt as a tool can erode trust and damage the relationship. The manipulator, too, may suffer consequences, as their reliance on guilt trips can alienate those around them and foster a cycle of unhealthy communication. To break free from the grip of a guilt trip requires self-awareness and boundary setting. Recognizing when guilt is being weaponized is the first step. Ask yourself, is this guilt coming from my own values and beliefs, or is it being imposed upon me? If it's the latter, it's essential to resist the urge to comply automatically. Instead, communicate your feelings honestly and assert your boundaries with compassion. "I understand your perspective, but I need to make this decision based on what feels right for me," can be a powerful response that disarms the manipulative narrative. For those tempted to use guilt trips, it's important to consider the long-term consequences. While the tactic might yield immediate results, it undermines the authenticity of relationships and erodes trust over time. Genuine connections are built on mutual respect and understanding, not on the weight of emotional debts. In the end, a guilt trip is a stark reminder of the emotional complexity of human interactions. It plays on the most tender parts of our psyche, our desire to do right, to be loved, to be seen as good. But true influence doesn't come from exploiting these desires. It comes from nurturing them, creating relationships where decisions are made freely and authentically without the shadow of guilt looming over them. 5. Manipulative negotiation. Manipulative negotiation is a high-stakes game where the goal isn't just reaching an agreement, but tilting the scales so heavily in your favor that the other party barely realizes they've been outmaneuvered. It's a strategy laced with urgency, exaggeration, and subtle coercion, designed to cloud judgment, heighten emotions, and force decisions under pressure. While it can be an artful display of persuasion, it often walks the fine line between influence and exploitation, leaving emotional ripples in its wake. Picture this: you're in a bustling marketplace, eyeing a beautiful handmade rug. The seller, with a practiced smile, says, "This piece is one of a kind. I just had someone inquire about it this morning, so if you don't take it now, it'll be gone by the afternoon." Suddenly, your sense of time collapses. What was a leisurely decision becomes urgent, a ticking clock you can't ignore. You buy the rug, feeling a mix of triumph and relief, until you realize later that it wasn't the only one on the shelf. This is the essence of manipulative negotiation, creating pressure where none exists and shaping perception to drive action. One of the most common tactics in manipulative negotiation is exaggeration. The stakes are inflated, the benefits overstated, and the potential losses magnified. A real estate agent might describe a property as the deal of the century, or suggest that everyone else is interested, so you'll need to act fast. These claims, while rarely verifiable in the moment, create an emotional urgency that pushes rational evaluation to the background. The fear of missing out, of losing something seemingly extraordinary, takes over, and decisions are made in haste. Another key tool is the rushed timeline. Manipulators understand that people make poorer decisions under pressure. By imposing artificial deadlines, they limit the other party's ability to think critically or explore alternatives. Imagine negotiating a business deal and hearing, "This offer is only valid until the end of the day." The urgency is palpable, leaving you little room to consult others or review the terms thoroughly. The manipulator thrives in this environment of constrained time, knowing that pressure often leads to concessions. Manipulative negotiation also leverages emotional appeals. A seller might lean in with a tone of concern, saying, "I really hate to see you miss this opportunity. It's perfect for someone like you." This subtle flattery, combined with implied scarcity, hooks the listener's emotions. The tactic works because it taps into deeper psychological needs, the desire to be valued, to make wise choices, and to seize opportunities. What makes these tactics so effective is their ability to distort reality. The urgency feels real, the exaggeration plausible, the emotional appeal genuine. But beneath the surface, the manipulator is orchestrating every detail, pulling strings to guide the negotiation toward their desired outcome. Emotionally, manipulative negotiation can leave a lasting impact on both parties. The person being manipulated may feel a fleeting sense of accomplishment until they realize they've been outplayed. This realization often brings frustration, regret, and even anger. The manipulator, on the other hand, risks long-term damage to their credibility and relationships. While they may win the immediate deal, the erosion of trust can make future negotiations far more challenging. So how can one navigate the storm of manipulative negotiation? Awareness is key, recognizing the signs of pressure tactics, exaggeration, rushed timelines, emotional appeals, can help you regain control of the situation. Take a step back, breathe, and remind yourself that urgency is often manufactured. Ask clarifying questions. Why does this offer expire so soon? Or, can you provide data to support this claim? This shifts the power dynamic, forcing the manipulator to defend their position. Another essential strategy is patience. Refuse to be rushed, even when deadlines are imposed. Make it clear that you value thorough evaluation over impulsive action. Often the mere act of slowing down the pace is enough to unsettle a manipulator, exposing the artificial nature of their urgency. For those tempted to use manipulative negotiation, it's worth reflecting on the long-term costs. While these tactics may yield short-term wins, they often come at the expense of trust, reputation, and meaningful relationships. True negotiation is about finding common ground and creating value for both parties, a process that builds bridges rather than burning them. In the end, manipulative negotiation is a reminder of the delicate balance between influence and integrity. It highlights the power of perception, the sway of emotion, and the importance of staying grounded in moments of pressure. Whether you're navigating the tactics or tempted to use them, the lesson is clear. The most successful outcomes are those rooted in respect, transparency, and mutual understanding. 6. Amplifying issues. Amplifying issues is a masterful stroke in the art of manipulation, a tactic that takes the small and makes it appear monumental. It plays on the innate human tendency to prioritize perceived dangers, turning whispers into roars and subtle inconveniences into crises. This strategy doesn't simply highlight a problem, it inflates it, weaving fear and urgency into the narrative so effectively that the audience sees no choice but to accept the proposed solution. Imagine standing at the edge of a calm stream, its waters barely knee-deep. A voice whispers in your ear, "This stream could flood at any moment. It's been known to sweep people away." Suddenly, the tranquil brook seems like a raging river in your mind. Though the stream's reality hasn't changed, your perception has. This is the heart of amplifying issues, transforming manageable concerns into overwhelming threats that demand immediate action. The first step in this tactic is identifying vulnerabilities. What are the fears, insecurities, or anxieties of the individual or group? A skilled manipulator zeroes in on these emotional weak points, knowing that fear clouds judgment. For instance, in a workplace setting, a manager might say, "If this minor glitch isn't fixed immediately, it could lead to a catastrophic system failure." The problem itself may be minor, a small coding error or a delayed report, but the framing magnifies its significance. The team, gripped by fear, scrambles to address the issue, often without questioning whether the urgency is justified. Amplifying issues also thrives on strategic language. Words like critical, disastrous, and unavoidable evoke visceral reactions, pushing people to prioritize the exaggerated problem. Imagine a politician declaring, "If we don't act now, this minor policy loophole will destroy the entire system." Such rhetoric leverages emotion over logic, directing public attention toward the problem and, conveniently, the proposed solution. Another cornerstone of this tactic is distraction. By focusing the audience's attention on the magnified problem, the manipulator diverts them from other potentially more significant issues. Consider a scenario in a family argument. A parent exaggerates the mess in the living room to avoid addressing a more serious topic, like financial troubles. The amplified issue becomes the center of discussion, conveniently steering attention away from more uncomfortable truths. The emotional impact of this tactic is profound. For the person on the receiving end, the sense of urgency and fear can feel all-consuming. Minor problems suddenly carry the weight of life-altering consequences, leading to anxiety-driven decisions. This emotional intensity often suppresses critical thinking, leaving individuals more susceptible to manipulation. However, the consequences of amplifying issues aren't one-sided. For the manipulator, while the tactic may yield immediate compliance, it risks eroding trust over time. When people realize they've been led astray by exaggerated claims, they may feel betrayed, questioning the manipulator's motives and future credibility. Relationships, whether personal, professional, or societal, can suffer lasting damage when trust is sacrificed for short-term gains. To counteract the effects of amplified issues, perspective is key. When confronted with a seemingly urgent problem, take a step back and ask, is this truly as significant as it seems? Seek out additional information, consult trusted sources, and consider the broader context. Often, a calm and measured evaluation can reveal the true scale of the issue, cutting through the manipulative fog. For those tempted to use this tactic, it's worth reflecting on its ethical implications. While amplifying issues can be an effective way to gain control or sway opinions, it comes at a cost. Manipulation through fear and urgency undermines the foundations of trust and respect, leaving relationships strained and reputations tarnished. Genuine influence doesn't require exaggeration. It relies on honesty, empathy, and the ability to inspire through truth. Amplifying Issues, in its essence, is a reminder of the power of perception. It highlights how easily fear can overshadow logic, how urgency can suppress clarity, and how minor concerns can be transformed into mountains with the right words. But it also serves as a cautionary tale. When wielded irresponsibly, this tactic can create more damage than the problems it claims to address. The challenge for both the manipulator and their audience is to see through the smoke and mirrors, finding clarity and balance in the face of exaggeration. 7. Love bombing. Love bombing is one of the most insidious forms of emotional manipulation, a tactic cloaked in warmth, adoration, and seemingly unconditional affection. At first, it feels like a fairy tale come to life, an overwhelming flood of love, attention, and validation that makes you feel seen, cherished, and irreplaceable. But beneath the glittering surface lies a darker purpose: to create dependency, blur boundaries, and ultimately gain control over the target's emotions and decisions. Imagine walking into a room filled with radiant light, where every glance, word, and touch feels like a warm embrace. The person before you seems utterly enchanted, lavishing you with compliments, grand gestures, and promises of forever. It's intoxicating, a whirlwind of affection that sweeps you off your feet. Yet, just as quickly as it began, the light dims, leaving you yearning for its return. This is the cycle of love bombing, a carefully constructed game of highs and lows designed to tether your heart to the manipulator's will. The power of love bombing lies in its intensity. People crave connection, and love bombing taps into this universal need by offering what feels like an abundance of love and acceptance. The manipulator might flood their target with texts, shower them with gifts, or make bold declarations of affection, often within an unnaturally short time frame. "I've never felt this way about anyone before," they might say, or "You're the only person who truly understands me." These words and actions are calculated to create a sense of exclusivity and urgency, pulling the target deeper into the web of manipulation. But love bombing is never about genuine connection, it's about control. Once the manipulator has established a bond of dependency, where the target feels validated only through the manipulator's affection, they begin to shift the dynamic. The once endless stream of love becomes conditional, doled out sparingly and tied to compliance. "If you really love me, you do this for me." Or, "I guess you just don't care about us the way I thought you did." These statements are weapons designed to exploit the emotional reliance created during the initial phase of love bombing. The emotional toll on the target is profound. At first, the love bombing feels euphoric, like stepping into a world of boundless joy. But as the manipulator pulls back, the target is left confused, anxious, and desperate to regain the connection they once felt. They may begin to question themselves. What did I do wrong? Or how can I make them love me like they did before? This self-doubt deepens their dependency, making it easier for the manipulator to exert control. Love bombing doesn't only happen in romantic relationships. It can manifest in friendships, workplaces, or even familial dynamics. A friend who constantly praises and supports you, only to turn cold and critical when you don't meet their expectations. A boss who heaps accolades on you, then withdraws. Support if you challenge their authority. A family member who showers you with gifts but expects unquestioning loyalty in return. The context may vary, but the underlying pattern remains the same: affection as a tool of manipulation. For the manipulator, love bombing can feel like a masterstroke, an easy way to gain influence and loyalty. But the cost is significant. Relationships built on manipulation are inherently fragile, and the emotional damage inflicted on the target can lead to resentment, mistrust, and eventual estrangement. Over time, the manipulator risks becoming isolated as their patterns of behavior become apparent to others. Recognizing love bombing requires a keen awareness of its red flags. Ask yourself, is this level of affection appropriate for the stage of the relationship? Does the other person's attention feel overwhelming or excessive? Are there signs that their love is conditional, tied to specific behaviors or outcomes? Trust your instincts. If something feels too good to be true, it often is. Breaking free from the grip of love bombing involves reclaiming your sense of self-worth. Remember that genuine love and connection are steady and respectful, not overwhelming or conditional. Establish boundaries, seek support from trusted friends or professionals, and remind yourself that your value isn't determined by someone else's approval. For those tempted to use love bombing, it's crucial to reflect on your motives. Are you seeking to build a genuine bond, or are you trying to gain control through affection? True love and influence come not from manipulation, but from authenticity, trust, and mutual respect. Anything less is a disservice to both parties, creating a foundation of deception rather than connection. In the end, love bombing is a stark reminder of the power of affection to heal or harm. It highlights the fine line between love and control, between validation and manipulation. For those caught in its thrall, the challenge is to see past the dazzling gestures and recognize the truth beneath the surface. And for those wielding it as a tool, the challenge is even greater, to step away from manipulation and toward the vulnerability and honesty that real love requires. 8. Silent treatment. Silence has a way of speaking louder than words, especially when it's wielded as a weapon. The silent treatment is a form of emotional manipulation that cuts deeper than a harsh word ever could. By withdrawing communication, the manipulator creates a void, an oppressive quiet that stirs anxiety, doubt, and desperation in the target. It's a cruel dance, where silence becomes the leash and approval the elusive prize, drawing the victim into a cycle of chasing validation. Imagine being locked in a room with someone you care about deeply. You reach out, speak, plead, but they turn away, refusing to engage. The air grows heavy, every second of silence amplifying your fear that you've done something wrong. The absence of words becomes suffocating, forcing you to ruminate over every detail, every interaction, wondering what you did to deserve the cold shoulder. This is the heart of the silent treatment, a deliberate withholding of connection to provoke uncertainty and gain control. The effectiveness of this tactic lies in its simplicity. Humans are social creatures, wired to seek connection and understanding. When that connection is severed, especially by someone we care about, it triggers a primal response, an urgent need to restore harmony. The manipulator exploits this instinct, using silence not as a means of self-reflection or resolution, but as a tool to assert dominance. The emotional toll is immediate. The target feels cast adrift, their thoughts spiraling into self-blame and insecurity. Did I upset them? What can I do to fix this? The silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back their fears and vulnerabilities. And when the manipulator finally breaks the silence, offering even the smallest gesture of engagement, it feels like a lifeline. The target, relieved to have the connection restored, may go to great lengths to avoid triggering the silent treatment. Again, in romantic relationships, the silent treatment is particularly devastating. A partner might refuse to speak after an argument, leaving the other to stew in uncertainty. The lack of communication not only stalls resolution, but also undermines the target's confidence and sense of stability. Over time, this dynamic creates a power imbalance, where the manipulator holds the reins of emotional security. In friendships or professional settings, the silent treatment can be just as damaging. A colleague who freezes you out after a disagreement, or a friend who ignores your messages without explanation, sends a clear message. Their approval is conditional, and you're left guessing the terms. This uncertainty can erode trust and self-assurance, making you more likely to conform to their expectations just to regain a sense of normalcy. What makes the silent treatment so emotionally potent is its ambiguity. Unlike overt criticism or argument, silence leaves room for interpretation. It forces the target to fill in the blanks, often with their worst fears. This self-imposed torment is what gives the tactic its power, allowing the manipulator to control without ever having to say a word. But the silent treatment is not without consequences. For the target, the emotional damage can be profound. Feelings of rejection, inadequacy, and anxiety that linger long after the silence has ended. For the manipulator, the short-term gains of control are often outweighed by long-term costs. Relationships built on fear and insecurity are fragile, and repeated use of the silent treatment can lead to resentment, mistrust, and eventual alienation. Breaking the cycle of the silent treatment requires courage and clarity. For the target, the first step is to recognize the behavior for what it is, a form of manipulation, not a reflection of their worth. Resist the urge to chase approval and instead assert your boundaries. A calm but firm statement like, "I'm here to talk when you're ready, but I won't tolerate being ignored," can shift the power dynamic, making it clear that silence is not an acceptable tool for resolution. For those tempted to use the silent treatment, it's important to examine your motives. Are you withdrawing to process your emotions, or are you using silence as a means of control? If it's the latter, consider the long-term damage this behavior inflicts, not just on the relationship, but on your own ability to engage in healthy communication. Genuine connection requires vulnerability and dialogue, not withdrawal and games. The silent treatment is a stark reminder of the power of absence. It shows how much weight silence can carry, how it can speak volumes in its emptiness. But while it may seem like an effective way to assert control, it ultimately isolates both parties, creating a chasm that genuine connection struggles to bridge. The challenge, for both the manipulator and their target, is to step out of the silence and into the light of honest, open communication. Only there can relationships truly thrive. 9. Triangulation. Triangulation is a tactic that uses a third party as a tool for control, sowing seeds of insecurity, jealousy, and competition in relationships. It's a silent whisper in the ear, a strategic move designed to pit people against one another while the manipulator remains in the shadows, watching the chaos unfold. Like a spider weaving its web, the manipulator carefully constructs a network of emotional entanglements, creating distrust, confusion, and emotional turmoil, all while maintaining the illusion of innocence. Imagine this. You're in a close friendship or romantic relationship, feeling secure and connected. Then, out of nowhere, your partner or friend starts talking about another person, someone they seem to have an unusually strong connection with. "I was talking to Jane about this issue yesterday," they say, "and she really gets me." Or perhaps, "I think John's advice on this is much more insightful than yours." Suddenly a small seed of doubt is planted in your mind. What is it about Jane or John that makes them so important? Why does your partner seem to value their opinion more than yours? The tactic of triangulation is subtle, but its effects are profound. It's not about the third party at all. It's about how their presence makes you feel unimportant, inadequate, and fearful of losing the connection you thought was secure. The manipulator doesn't have to directly pit people against one another. Instead, they simply create the illusion of competition, drawing comparisons and subtly undermining one party to elevate another. This fosters an environment of constant insecurity and emotional turmoil. In romantic relationships, triangulation can be devastating. A partner may intentionally stir jealousy by mentioning an ex or a new friend who seems to be getting more attention. This strategy forces the other person to compete for affection, approval, and attention, constantly wondering where they stand. Every word, every gesture becomes laden with doubt. Does he care more about her than me? Why does she always talk about him that way? The manipulator thrives on this confusion, knowing that as long as the target is off balance, they can maintain control. In friendships, triangulation can create unnecessary divisions and animosity. A friend might subtly talk about another mutual friend in a way that pits you against them. I don't know. Sarah really seemed to be defending you at the party last night, they might say, all while knowing full well that the dynamic between you and Sarah is already tense. The manipulator steps back, watching the emotions swirl between the two of you, feeding off the distrust and discomfort they've carefully cultivated. Triangulation also thrives in family dynamics, where competition for attention, love, or validation can be manipulated to create fractures. A parent might play their children off one another. Your sister always gets the best grades. You should really try harder to keep up. Or a sibling might feign favoritism from a parent to provoke jealousy. These actions are designed to create emotional rivalry, making individuals feel they are competing for something they can never truly win, because the manipulator's approval is always elusive and conditional. The emotional impact of triangulation is profound. For the person being manipulated, it breeds constant self-doubt, insecurity, and fear of being replaced or overlooked. They become hyper-aware of the third party's actions, often scrutinizing every interaction for signs of favoritism or rejection. This constant emotional vigilance takes a toll, wearing down self-esteem and trust. The manipulator, by contrast, remains unscathed, manipulating from behind the scenes while others are left to fight over their affections, validation, or attention. The danger of triangulation lies in its ability to create a false sense of control. The manipulator may feel empowered, watching as their targets spiral into jealousy and competition. They might even believe they're cleverly managing relationships, ensuring they stay at the center of attention. But this tactic, like all forms of manipulation, comes at a cost. Over time, it erodes trust, leaving a trail of fractured relationships and damaged self-worth. The people involved may eventually realize they've been played, and the manipulator's carefully crafted web may come unraveled. To break free from triangulation, it's essential to recognize the signs. When you feel like someone is intentionally using a third party to make you feel insecure, ask yourself, why is this person bringing up this other person in this way? Is it truly necessary to mention them, or is it meant to provoke a reaction? Awareness is the first step in regaining control and restoring emotional clarity. In relationships, honest communication is the antidote to triangulation. If you feel like someone is trying to create tension between you and another person, address it directly with them. Express your concerns, clarify boundaries, and ask for transparency. When the manipulator realizes their tactic isn't working, they lose their power to control the narrative. For those who use triangulation, it's worth reflecting on the emotional cost of such manipulation. The need to control others by creating rivalry and jealousy is rooted in insecurity, an insecurity that ultimately damages not only others, but yourself. True connection comes from trust, openness, and mutual respect, not games and manipulation. If you find yourself regularly resorting to triangulation, ask yourself why. The answer might lie in deeper emotional needs, ones that can be addressed in healthier, more honest ways. Triangulation is a stark reminder of the fragility of human connections and the ease with which trust can be manipulated. It thrives in the spaces where insecurity and jealousy reside, sowing division where there should be unity. The challenge is to step away from these toxic patterns, to embrace vulnerability and openness, and to understand that genuine relationships are built on mutual respect, not competition or manipulation. Only then can we break free from the webs we've created and find true emotional freedom. 10. Flattery. Flattery is one of the oldest tricks in the book, an artful tool of manipulation wrapped in the seductive guise of kindness and praise. At first glance, a compliment may seem harmless, even generous. "You're incredible at what you do. You have such a brilliant mind," or "I've never met anyone as talented as you." These words sound like gifts, but what they are truly designed to do is lower your defenses, to make you feel good about yourself, to make you trust the person who delivers them, and to open the door to influence. Flattery is not just about praise, it's a calculated strategy, one that has the power to shape behavior, sway decisions, and draw people into a web of manipulation. Flattery operates on a deep, primal level. All of us, at our core, want to feel seen and valued. We long for recognition, affirmation, and validation. The manipulator knows this, and so they deliver compliments strategically, preying on our need for connection and approval. They make us feel special, elevating us above the crowd, and in doing so, they create an emotional bond, one that's subtle but powerful. Imagine being told, "You're the smartest person I've ever met." In that moment, you might feel flattered, maybe even a little humbled, but what's happening beneath the surface? The manipulator is positioning themselves as someone who admires you, someone whose approval matters. They are slowly weaving a thread of dependency, making you crave their validation even more. And the more you crave it, the more they hold the power. Flattery is often carefully timed. A manipulator might offer compliments when you're vulnerable, when you need a confidence boost, or when you're in a position to make a decision. A colleague who knows you're stressed about a big presentation might say, "I'm sure you'll knock it out of the park. You're always so calm under pressure." Or a friend who senses you're unsure of your next move might say, "You always know exactly what to do in these situations." In these moments, the flattery doesn't just make you feel good. It's a signal that the manipulator is paying attention to your needs, even as they steer you toward their hidden agenda. The emotional impact of flattery is subtle but powerful. At first, it feels like warmth, a sincere gesture that reinforces your self-worth, but with each compliment, you begin to feel a little more indebted to the person offering them. You start to believe they value you, and perhaps in turn, you begin to value their opinion more than you should. The more they flatter you, the more you open yourself up to their influence. You start to feel a connection, even though that connection may not be genuine. It's a relationship built on the shaky foundation of empty praise, not true trust or understanding. In romantic relationships, flattery can be particularly dangerous. A partner might shower you with compliments to make you feel irresistible, to make you feel like the only one who matters, when in reality, they are simply manipulating your emotions to serve their own needs. When someone tells you, "You're the most beautiful person I've ever seen, no one compares to you," it can feel intoxicating, affirming your worth and reinforcing your attachment. But this flattery may not come from a place of love. It may be designed to control your sense of self, making you more susceptible to their desires and demands. In friendships or professional settings, flattery can be used to gain favor, to shift your decisions, or to align your actions with someone else's agenda. A colleague who constantly tells you you're such a natural leader may be setting you up to take on more responsibility, to make decisions that benefit them, or to become more invested in their success. The constant praise makes it difficult to say no, to question their motives, or to recognize that their compliments may be more about their needs than your worth. The true danger of flattery is its ability to make you feel good while subtly manipulating you into a place of dependence. The compliments are never as innocent as they seem. They act as a smokescreen, distracting you from the manipulator's true intentions. They make you feel that you are in control, when in reality, the manipulator is gently guiding you where they want you to go. For the person on the receiving end of flattery, the key is to stay aware. Recognize when compliments are being used not to uplift you, but to create a sense of obligation or dependency. Take a step back and ask yourself, why is this person flattering me? What do they want in return? True admiration doesn't require manipulation. It's given freely, without strings attached. If the flattery feels excessive or insincere, trust your instincts. There's often more lurking beneath the surface. For those tempted to use flattery as a means of influence, it's important to reflect on your intentions. Are you offering compliments because you genuinely admire someone, or are you trying to get something from them? Flattery is a dangerous game when used to manipulate others, and while it might yield short-term success, it erodes trust over time. Healthy relationships, whether personal or professional, are built on authenticity, not calculated praise. True influence comes from respect and integrity, not manipulation. Flattery is a reminder of how easily our emotions can be swayed by praise. It highlights the power of words, how they can lift us up and make us feel seen, but also how they can be used to subtly control our actions and decisions. The challenge for both the one offering the flattery and the one receiving it is to recognize when compliments are genuine and when they are tools of influence. Only then can we navigate relationships with a sense of clarity and autonomy, free from the traps of empty praise. 11. Scarcity Tactics. The fear of missing out, the rush of adrenaline when faced with something in short supply. This is the driving force behind scarcity tactics. It's a powerful manipulation tool, preying on our natural instinct to act quickly. When we believe opportunities are slipping away, whether it's a limited time offer, an exclusive invitation, or a rare opportunity, scarcity makes us feel like we need to decide fast or risk losing everything. The manipulation comes from how it exploits our fears, our desires, and our vulnerability to make us act impulsively, often against our better judgment. Picture yourself walking through a store, and the salesperson approaches with a look of urgency. Only 2 left in stock. You'll regret it if you don't buy now. Or perhaps you're browsing online, and a pop-up flashes across the screen. Only 3 items left. Order now before it's too late. The moment you hear or see the word limited, a wave of panic rises within you. Your mind races, thinking, if I don't act now, I might lose out on something incredible. Suddenly, a decision that should have been measured, thoughtful, and based on necessity becomes driven by fear and the desire to possess what feels scarce. Scarcity taps into one of the deepest psychological triggers we have: the fear of loss. It's a primal instinct, one that has kept us safe in a world of limited resources. When we believe something is rare, valuable, or fleeting, we become more inclined to act quickly to secure it, sometimes without considering if it's truly what we want or need. Scarcity turns the idea of missing out into a visceral, almost physical sensation, and in that moment, logic takes a back seat to emotion. It forces us to make decisions based on fear rather than reason. This tactic is most often used in sales and marketing, where creating the illusion of urgency can drive purchases. But it doesn't stop there. Scarcity tactics are also deeply ingrained in relationships, both personal and professional, where a manipulator uses the threat of loss to create tension and pressure. If you don't make a decision soon, I'll just stop asking, a partner might say. Or a friend might say, I'm probably going to stop talking to you if you don't agree with me on this. These words, though not always stated explicitly, can create a sense of urgency that overrides careful consideration and healthy boundaries. In romantic relationships, scarcity can be particularly potent. A partner might withhold affection, use "I'm not sure about us" as a tool to create anxiety or suggest that their attention is in high demand elsewhere. "I don't know if I'll be available for you next weekend," they might say, making you feel as though your time with them is limited and you have to jump at every chance to hold on to it. The fear of losing them, of the opportunity slipping through your fingers, can make you anxious, worried, and eager to please, even when you know deep down that something is not quite right. In friendships, the scarcity tactic can create unhealthy competition and emotional strain. A friend who makes you feel like their attention is scarce, or who pulls away when you need them most, can make you desperate to maintain the connection, leaving you wondering, "Am I not important enough to deserve their time?" The constant push and pull, being made to feel like you might lose them at any moment, keeps you on edge, uncertain about where you stand in the relationship, and prone to making decisions based on emotional urgency rather than mutual respect. In the workplace, scarcity tactics are often used by leaders or colleagues to generate competition or pressure. A manager might imply that there are only a few spots left for a project or promotion, making everyone scramble to prove themselves, often in ways that aren't healthy or fair. Only 2 candidates will be chosen. Make sure you're one of them. The pressure to act quickly and outshine others can force individuals to rush decisions, make sacrifices, and prioritize work over personal well-being. What makes scarcity tactics so effective is how deeply they tap into our fear of loss, something we all carry in different forms. It's not just about the object, the opportunity, or the relationship. It's about the sense that, if we don't act immediately, we will never have the chance again. This psychological manipulation uses our own vulnerability against us, driving us to make decisions that can leave us feeling regretful, confused, or even cheated. The emotional toll of scarcity tactics is significant. When we are manipulated into making hasty decisions based on the illusion of limited time or opportunity, we are left feeling emotionally drained. The anxiety of making the wrong decision, of possibly missing out, can lead to buyer's remorse, self-doubt, and a sense of powerlessness. It's a tactic that works by diminishing your sense of control, making you believe that the clock is ticking and you must act before it's too late. To break free from the manipulation of scarcity, it's crucial to slow down. Recognize the fear that is being triggered and give yourself the space to think critically. Ask yourself, is this really a rare opportunity, or is it just a tactic to get you to act without thinking? Are you making this decision out of genuine desire or because someone is pushing you into a corner? Taking a step back, breathing, and asking these questions will give you the clarity you need to make decisions that are true to your values, not based on fleeting emotions or manufactured urgency. For those using scarcity as a manipulation tactic, it's important to reflect on your intentions. Are you using urgency to control, or are you genuinely trying to offer something valuable? Manipulating others into action through fear of loss can cause long-term damage to relationships and trust. It might seem effective in the moment, but over time, it breeds resentment, anxiety, and mistrust. Scarcity tactics are a reflection of how deeply fear and insecurity can influence human behavior. They remind us of our natural tendency to hold on to what we believe is slipping away. But the challenge is not to let that fear control our choices. By being aware of when scarcity is being used against us, we can hold on to our power and make decisions that align with our true desires, free from the pressure of imagined limits. 12. Emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail is one of the darkest, most insidious forms of manipulation. It is a form of control that exploits your deepest emotions, guilt, fear, love, and obligation, and uses them as weapons against you. Unlike other tactics, Emotional blackmail goes straight for the heart, bypassing your logic and planting a seed of dread in the deepest corners of your soul. It makes you feel like you owe someone something, that you must act according to their wishes, or else face emotional consequences that you fear will break you. Imagine this. You're in a relationship, and you've just made a decision that doesn't align with your partner's wishes. Instead of a calm, rational conversation, you are met with emotional devastation. "If you leave me now, I don't know how I'll cope," they might say. "I'll be ruined without you." Or in a family dynamic, a parent might say, "If you don't visit me this weekend, I'll be heartbroken. Do you really want to hurt me like that?" These words are not just expressions of emotion. They are calculated attempts to force you into action, to make you feel that your love, your loyalty, or your care is the only thing that can save the person you care about from emotional ruin. Emotional blackmail works because it preys on our deepest fears. Fear of being blamed, fear of rejection, and fear of the emotional consequences of our decisions. The manipulator knows how to play on these emotions, tapping into the vulnerability you feel when you love someone or when you care deeply about their well-being. The strategy doesn't just push you to do something, it makes you feel like your refusal to comply will cause unbearable harm, making you question your own boundaries and your own needs. You are forced to choose between your own well-being and the fear of inflicting emotional pain on someone else. The emotional toll of blackmail is immense. It chips away at your ability to make independent decisions because every choice feels like a trap. If you say no, you face guilt. If you say yes, you might feel resentment or frustration. The emotional manipulator ensures that you are never free from their grip. They make you feel responsible for their happiness, as though your actions are directly linked to their emotional survival. In romantic relationships, emotional blackmail can take many forms. A partner might use the threat of emotional devastation to make you do what they want. "If you truly loved me, you'd stay," or "I can't live without you," are statements designed to twist your emotions and manipulate your actions. They may not be saying these things to hurt you, but to make you feel like you are the one who must carry the weight of their emotional well-being. You are made to feel like the relationship hinges entirely on your willingness to sacrifice your own desires for theirs, leaving you trapped in a cycle of fear and guilt. In friendships, emotional blackmail often involves making you feel like a bad friend if you don't comply with the other person's needs. "I thought we were friends, but you never make time for me anymore," they might say, making you feel guilty for living your life according to your own priorities. The manipulator seeks to make you feel that your absence, your decision to not cater to their every whim, will somehow break the friendship or cause irreparable harm. The more you give in to these demands, the more you lose your own autonomy, becoming entangled in their emotional needs. In families, emotional blackmail can be especially toxic. A parent may say, "After everything I've done for you, you can't even give me this one thing." The message is clear. Your love and respect are conditional upon you giving in to their demands. A sibling might play on your guilt, reminding you of past favors or sacrifices to pressure you into doing something you don't want to do. The manipulator relies on your sense of familial duty, knowing that it's difficult to say no to someone who's tied to you by blood. The threat of emotional damage, of breaking a family bond, becomes a heavy weight you carry, often without realizing how much you've lost in the process. The insidious nature of emotional blackmail lies in its ability to make you feel responsible for someone else's emotions. It's a mind game designed to twist your thoughts, making you feel as though your refusal to comply will result in irrevocable emotional consequences. The manipulator doesn't have to directly say, "If you don't do this, I'll make you feel bad." Instead, they use the subtle language of guilt and fear to push you into a corner, leaving you feeling powerless and obliged. The emotional damage from blackmail is not always visible at first. It often builds over time, until one day you wake up and realize you've been giving up pieces of yourself, compromising your happiness and needs just to keep someone else from feeling bad. This emotional burden creates a deep sense of unease, resentment, and even self-doubt. You begin to question your worth, your value, and whether you deserve to have your own needs met. To escape the grip of emotional blackmail, it's essential to recognize it for what it is: a manipulation of your feelings, designed to gain control over your actions. Awareness is the first step to reclaiming your autonomy. Start by setting clear boundaries. Understand that your feelings are just as valid as those of the manipulator, and it's okay to say no. You are not responsible for another person's emotional well-being, and you do not have to sacrifice your happiness to prevent them from feeling hurt. If you find yourself the one using emotional blackmail, ask yourself why. Are you seeking to control others because you fear rejection, loss, or abandonment? Emotional blackmail is a reflection of your own insecurities, and while it may give you short-term control, it ultimately damages the trust and respect in your relationships. It's an act born out of fear, not love. Emotional blackmail thrives in relationships where one person feels they have the power to control another's emotions. It feeds off guilt, fear, and a deep need for approval. The damage it causes is often invisible, but the effects are long-lasting. By recognizing and confronting emotional blackmail, we can begin to break free from its grip, restoring balance, trust, and emotional freedom in our relationships. 13. Fake concern. At first it seems like genuine care, like someone who truly has your best interests at heart. Their voice softens, their eyes meet yours with what appears to be understanding, and their words are drenched in sympathy. "Are you okay? I'm really worried about you," they say. And for a moment you feel a sense of relief. Someone cares, someone sees your pain. But behind those words lies a darker agenda, a manipulation so carefully crafted that you might not even realize you're being pulled into their web. Fake concern is one of the most insidious forms of emotional manipulation. It's the act of feigning care and sympathy to mask hidden motives. It's not about your well-being. It's about getting you to do what they want by pretending to be emotionally invested in your situation. The manipulator doesn't care about your struggles or triumphs. What they care about is what they can gain from you, and they will use the mask of concern to lead you down a path that serves their own needs. Imagine a colleague who comes to you during a stressful period at work. You seem overwhelmed. You sure you can handle everything? Maybe I should take some of that off your plate, but only if you're really struggling, they might say. On the surface, this looks like a kind offer, a helping hand extended when you need it the most. But beneath the surface, their true intention might be far from altruistic. They may be trying to manipulate you into a position where they can take credit for your work, gain favor with the boss, or steer you in a direction that benefits them, not you. In romantic relationships, fake concern can be even more dangerous. A partner might tell you, "I'm just worried about you. You've been so distant lately. I'm here for you always." They may even act as though they're doing you a favor by showing such concern, making you feel guilty for not being as open or affectionate as you should be. But the truth is, their worry isn't about your well-being. It's about creating a sense of emotional dependence. They use concern as a way to control your actions, to make you feel indebted to them, and to steer you into doing what they want. You might start second-guessing yourself, wondering if you're really as distant or distant as they say you are, feeling pressured to conform to their ideal version of you. In friendships, fake concern can be a subtle yet powerful manipulative tool. A friend might express worry about your choices or your happiness, but instead of offering genuine support, Their words subtly undermine your confidence. "I'm just concerned because I care about you," they might say, while subtly pushing their opinions, decisions, or judgments onto you. The more you absorb their concern, the more you start to believe that your decisions aren't your own, but are somehow flawed, needing correction or validation from them. It's not about being there for you, it's about subtly guiding you to act according to their wishes. The emotional toll of fake concern is profound. It erodes your sense of trust and self-worth. When someone pretends to care about you, but their true motive is self-serving, it creates a deep sense of confusion. You begin to question whether the relationship is genuine or whether it's just another manipulation tactic. The more you are subjected to this insincere concern, the more you feel trapped because it's difficult to recognize where true care ends and where manipulation begins. It's like being caught in a fog, unsure whether the person standing in front of you is really there to help or if they are merely trying to influence your choices for their own benefit. The most dangerous aspect of fake concern is how it preys on your vulnerability. We are all human, and we all need to feel seen, understood, and cared for. A manipulator knows this and exploits these basic emotional needs to gain control over you. They weave their fake concern so skillfully that it's difficult to tell where their care ends and where their manipulation begins. You feel guilty for not being more open with them. You feel bad for not accepting their help. And you start to believe that your decisions are somehow flawed without their input. The emotional damage is slow and insidious. Over time, you may begin to second-guess your decisions, your instincts, and your own ability to care for yourself. The manipulator plants seeds of self-doubt, making you believe that their version of concern is the only one that matters. This creates a power imbalance, where you feel small, unsure of yourself, and dependent on their validation. The key to protecting yourself from fake concern is awareness. Recognize when someone is using the guise of care to control or influence you. Pay attention to how their concern makes you feel. Does it make you feel empowered, or does it leave you feeling drained, confused, or guilty? True care doesn't demand anything in return. True concern isn't conditional. It doesn't come with hidden motives or the pressure to act in a certain way. It's important to distinguish between genuine empathy and manipulation. If you find yourself in a situation where fake concern is being used to manipulate you, trust your instincts. Step back and ask yourself, what is this person really asking of me? Is their concern genuine, or is it a way to get me to act in their favor? You have every right to protect your autonomy and to make decisions based on your own values, not because someone else is trying to control your behavior under the pretense of caring. For those using fake concern as a manipulation tactic, it's essential to reflect on your intentions. Why are you pretending to care? What do you hope to gain by making someone believe you are emotionally invested in their well-being? This tactic often stems from insecurity or the need for control. While it may seem effective in the moment, it ultimately erodes trust and damages relationships. True connection and influence come from authenticity, not deceit. Fake concern is a tactic that turns the very thing we seek most, care and compassion, into a weapon of control. It preys on our vulnerability, using emotional manipulation to guide us into making decisions that benefit someone else. The only way to protect yourself from this insidious form of manipulation is to be aware of your emotions and the motivations of those around you. Real care doesn't demand action, it simply offers support. The difference is subtle but profound, and recognizing it can free you from the web of manipulation. 14. Blame shifting. Blame shifting is a powerful, often painful form of manipulation that leaves a trail of confusion, guilt, and resentment. It's an insidious tactic, one that works by transferring the weight of responsibility from the person who truly deserves it onto someone else, often leaving them to carry a burden that isn't theirs to bear. This tactic is not just about avoiding consequences, it's about shifting the narrative, rewriting the story, and making others feel like they are the ones to blame, even when they're not. It's a subtle dance of deceit, and its emotional impact can be overwhelming. Imagine being in a heated argument with a partner, trying to express your feelings about something that went wrong, only for them to turn the conversation around on you. Well, if you hadn't done this, we wouldn't be in this mess, they say, deflecting the blame onto you, even though their own actions played a significant part in the problem. Suddenly, you find yourself on the defensive, questioning your own actions, even though deep down you know the fault isn't entirely yours. The emotional toll is profound. Confusion, frustration, guilt, and a lingering sense of injustice. Blame shifting is not just about evading responsibility. It's about controlling the narrative, making the other person feel that they are at fault, even if they aren't. It is an effective strategy because it plays on our natural tendency to want to avoid conflict and keep relationships intact. When someone shifts the blame onto us, we might feel compelled to apologize, to defend ourselves, or to try and smooth things over, even if we aren't truly responsible. This creates a toxic cycle where the person doing the blame shifting never learns from their mistakes, and the person being blamed feels increasingly powerless and self-doubting. In relationships, blame shifting can be incredibly damaging. A partner who constantly shifts the blame for their own actions onto you can leave you feeling as though nothing you do is ever good enough. They might say things like, "If you just did things the way I wanted, we wouldn't have these problems," or "I only acted this way because of you." Slowly, you begin to internalize the idea that it's always your fault, that you are somehow responsible for their behavior and emotions. This leaves you in a perpetual state of guilt and self-doubt, unable to break free from the emotional trap they've set for you. In families, blame shifting is equally destructive. A parent might make you feel responsible for their unhappiness, using statements like, "I gave everything for you, and this is how you repay me," or "You always disappoint me." The heavy weight of guilt settles on your shoulders, and you start questioning whether it's your fault that things are going wrong, even when you know deep down that the situation isn't entirely yours to control. The emotional manipulation continues, eroding your sense of self-worth and leaving you questioning your every move. In the workplace, blame shifting is often used as a tool for survival, especially in high-stakes environments where power and control are central. A manager who avoids taking responsibility for poor decisions might place the blame on their team. "This wouldn't have happened if you had done things differently," they might say, even though their own decisions were the root cause of the issue. This kind of blame shifting leaves employees feeling undermined, unsupported, and devalued. It's a tactic that erodes trust within teams, fostering resentment and a toxic atmosphere of fear and defensiveness. The emotional toll of blame shifting is exhausting. It creates confusion, anger, and a deep sense of injustice. You start questioning your own actions, even when you know you're not at fault. The manipulator's words swirl in your head, making you second-guess everything you've done, and you begin to feel like you're the problem in every situation. The more this happens, the more your confidence erodes, and your sense of self becomes tied to the manipulator's version of events. You start to believe that it's always your fault, that you are the one who needs to change, and that the other person is innocent, even when the facts don't align with their story. The worst part of blame shifting is the absence of accountability. When someone consistently shifts blame, they never have to confront their own mistakes. They never have to grow, learn, or change. Instead, they perpetuate a cycle of blame, pushing responsibility onto others and ensuring that they never face the consequences of their own actions. Meanwhile, the person being blamed becomes increasingly burdened with guilt and frustration, often to the point of feeling completely powerless in the situation. The key to breaking free from the emotional grip of blame shifting is recognition. The first step is to realize that you are being manipulated, that the blame being placed on you is unfair, and that it is not your responsibility to carry the weight of someone else's mistakes. Once you identify the tactic, you can begin to protect your own emotional well-being. Start by standing firm in your truth. Don't let others twist the narrative. Be clear about your own actions and take ownership of what is truly yours to own. But don't accept responsibility for things that aren't yours. It's okay to say, "This is not my fault," and to set healthy boundaries. If you find yourself using blame shifting, it's important to reflect on why you feel the need to avoid responsibility. Are you afraid of confrontation? Or do you struggle to accept your own flaws? Blame shifting is often a defense mechanism, an attempt to protect yourself from the discomfort of admitting mistakes. But growth comes from owning your actions, learning from them, and making amends when necessary. Avoiding accountability only keeps you trapped in a cycle of dishonesty and emotional manipulation. Blame shifting is a toxic behavior that distorts reality, undermines relationships, and erodes trust. It's a form of control, a way to avoid facing the truth by pushing responsibility onto others. The emotional impact of this manipulation can be long-lasting, leaving you with a deep sense of confusion, guilt, and self-doubt. But by recognizing it for what it is and standing up for yourself, you can break free from the cycle of blame and reclaim your power and peace of mind. 15. Playing the victim. Life is a theater, and some of the most compelling performances often happen off-stage. Among these, the act of playing the victim stands out as a masterful strategy employed by those who seek to manipulate the emotions and judgments of others. By casting themselves as the helpless, the wronged, or the misunderstood, they wield an unexpected form of power, the power of pity. Imagine a scenario. A co-worker fails to deliver on a project deadline. Instead of owning up to their mistake, they recount a tale of personal tragedy. Perhaps they mention a sleepless night due to a sick child or vague allusions to difficult times. The result? Criticism softens, accountability is postponed, and they emerge unscathed, shielded by the armor of sympathy. It's an artful dance of deflection, one that redirects the spotlight from failure to fragility. This tactic works because it taps into one of our most basic human instincts, the desire to help and protect those in distress. When someone positions themselves as the victim, they activate a primal urge in others to comfort and shield. In doing so, they shift the focus from their actions to their supposed suffering. Criticism becomes cruelty. Questioning becomes insensitivity. The danger of this strategy, however, lies in its corrosive effects on trust and relationships. When playing the victim becomes habitual, it breeds resentment. Colleagues grow weary of excuses. Friends start to question the authenticity of the person's struggles. Over time, the mask slips, revealing a pattern of manipulation rather than genuine hardship. This tactic is not limited to professional settings. It manifests in personal relationships as well. Consider the partner who repeatedly invokes their troubled past to justify hurtful behavior, or the family member who turns every disagreement into a testament of how they are always misunderstood. By framing themselves as victims, they sidestep accountability and force others into a cycle of guilt and appeasement. Yet playing the victim is not merely about avoiding blame, it's also a covert bid for control. By eliciting pity, the individual shifts the balance of power in their favor. They create a dynamic where others feel obligated to accommodate their needs, often at the expense of their own boundaries. But how can one recognize and navigate such dynamics? The key lies in discernment. Genuine victims need support and understanding, but habitual victimhood is marked by patterns. Look for recurring themes. Is the person suffering always exaggerated? Are they consistently avoiding accountability? Does their narrative often paint them as the sole figure of misfortune while others bear the blame? Dealing with someone who employs this tactic requires a delicate balance. It's important to express empathy for their struggles while gently holding them accountable. For instance, acknowledging their challenges while steering the conversation back to the issue at hand can help dismantle the cycle of deflection. Ultimately, playing the victim is a short-term strategy. While it may grant temporary reprieve from criticism or responsibility, it undermines the deeper foundation of trust and respect that sustains meaningful relationships. True strength lies not in evading accountability, but in embracing it. By owning one's actions and acknowledging their impact, a person can inspire genuine support and admiration, far more enduring currencies than the fleeting gains of pity. 16. Negative reinforcement. Life often teaches us through the language of discomfort. We've all felt the sting of an unpleasant situation, a grating noise, an awkward silence, or the weight of an unresolved task. But what if relief from those moments could be used as a tool, a subtle yet profound way to shape behavior? Welcome to the concept of negative reinforcement, a strategy that removes discomfort to reward and strengthen desired actions. Picture this. A student sits in a classroom, the hum of an overhead projector a persistent distraction. The teacher notices the agitation and announces, "Once everyone finishes their assignment, I'll turn it off." Almost magically, pencils start scratching furiously on paper, and the room quiets with focus. The relief, the silencing of the irritating noise, becomes the reward for completing the task. Negative reinforcement isn't about punishment or reprimands. It's the art of lifting burdens, of taking away what's unwelcome to encourage the behavior we wish to see more of. Its strength lies in its simplicity. Remove an irritant, and the desire to avoid that discomfort propels action. This strategy isn't confined to classrooms. Think about the beep of a car that reminds you to buckle your seatbelt. The moment you comply, the sound stops, leaving behind a sense of relief. Or consider the boss who ends endless follow-up emails once an employee submits a timely report. The cessation of annoyance becomes its own form of reward, quietly but effectively reinforcing the desired behavior. Yet, like all tools, negative reinforcement requires care in its application. Used wisely, it encourages growth, focus, and adherence. Misused, it can breed anxiety or resentment. A parent who only stops nagging after a child finishes their chores may inadvertently create a sense of obligation rather than genuine willingness. Similarly, an employer who frequently uses this technique without balance might cultivate compliance at the cost of morale. At its heart, negative reinforcement reveals something essential about human nature. We are creatures wired to seek relief. We're drawn to actions that resolve tension, that bring clarity to chaos or peace to discomfort, and therein lies its emotional power. The feeling of relief isn't just the absence of distress. It's a small victory, a reminder that we have agency to change our circumstances. But how does this translate into meaningful relationships or personal growth? Imagine a couple navigating conflict. One partner, frustrated by constant interruptions during conversations, might point out, "When you let me finish speaking, the argument feels less heated." Over time, the removal of tension becomes an incentive for more respectful dialogue. Or take the individual who's overwhelmed by clutter. They decide to clear just one corner of their workspace, discovering a newfound sense of calm that motivates further tidying. Negative reinforcement, when stripped of its clinical jargon, is an emotional dance between discomfort and relief, frustration and freedom. It's a reminder that even the most unpleasant factors in our lives hold potential, not as obstacles to endure, but as opportunities to guide and transform. To wield this tool effectively, one must approach it with intention, recognize the discomforts that weigh on others, and consider how their removal can pave the way for positive actions. Celebrate the small moments of relief, for they are more than fleeting comforts. They are the building blocks of growth and change. In a world often marked by challenges, negative reinforcement offers a quiet yet powerful means to illuminate paths forward, one sigh of relief at a time. 17. Passive aggression. There's a unique sting to words that cut while pretending to soothe, to smiles that hide daggers, and to compliments that leave a bitter aftertaste. Passive aggression is the art of expressing hostility indirectly, a masked hostility that cloaks itself in sarcasm, backhanded compliments, or subtle digs. It's not the roar of anger, but the whisper of discontent, soft, but no less harmful. Imagine this scenario. You've worked tirelessly on a presentation. As you proudly share it with your team, a colleague remarks with a saccharine smile, "Wow, you're so brave to present something so unconventional." The words might be wrapped in politeness, but the underlying message is unmistakable. The hostility is clear, yet veiled in a way that makes direct confrontation feel impossible. Passive aggression thrives in the grey spaces of communication. It's the pointed silence in response to a question, the exaggerated sigh when a task is assigned, or the classic "I'm fine" when everything about the tone suggests the opposite. Unlike overt aggression, which is loud and direct, passive aggression festers quietly, eroding trust and leaving the recipient feeling off balance and confused. What drives someone to adopt this strategy? Often it's rooted in fear, fear of conflict, fear of rejection, or fear of vulnerability. Rather than openly expressing frustration or anger, a passive-aggressive person buries those emotions beneath a veneer of civility. It's a defense mechanism, a way to assert power or express dissatisfaction without risking outright confrontation. Yet, this indirect hostility can be deeply damaging to relationships. Over time, it creates an environment of mistrust and resentment. The recipient of passive aggression often feels as though they're navigating a minefield, never quite sure where the next explosion of sarcasm or subtle dig will land. Communication breaks down, and both parties retreat further into their corners, their unspoken grievances festering like wounds left untreated. The effects of passive aggression are not confined to personal relationships. In professional settings, it can poison team dynamics. Consider the coworker who habitually forgets to include you on important emails, or the manager who praises your effort in public but undermines you in private. Such behaviors create a toxic atmosphere where collaboration becomes strained and morale plummets. But passive aggression doesn't have to be a permanent pattern. Recognizing and addressing it requires courage and a willingness to engage with the discomfort of honest communication. For those on the receiving end, the key lies in bringing the hidden hostility into the open. A response like, "That sounded a bit pointed. Can we talk about what's really going on?" can disarm the passive-aggressive person and create an opening for genuine dialogue. For the passive-aggressive individual, the journey begins with self-awareness. Acknowledging the emotions that drive their behavior, whether it's anger, frustration, or insecurity, is the first step toward healthier communication. Learning to express these feelings directly, even if it feels uncomfortable at first, can transform relationships and break the cycle of indirect hostility. In the end, passive aggression is a mask, a way to hide pain or dissatisfaction while pretending everything is fine. But masks are isolating, and they prevent the kind of authentic connection we all crave. By setting aside the barbed remarks and veiled hostility, we make room for honesty, understanding, and the possibility of true resolution. After all, real strength lies not in concealing our emotions, but in confronting them with courage and clarity. 18. Love withdrawal. Few things in life cut as deeply as the sudden chill of withheld affection. One moment you feel wrapped in warmth, safety, and love. The next, it's as if the sun has vanished, leaving you shivering in an emotional winter. This is the heart of love withdrawal, a manipulative tactic that exploits one of the most fundamental human needs, the desire for love and connection. Love withdrawal is not a mere argument or temporary distance born out of frustration. It is deliberate and calculated. It's the act of using love, or more accurately, the absence of it, as a tool to control, coerce, or punish. If you don't do what I want, I won't love you anymore. These words may not always be spoken aloud, but their implications scream through the silence, the cold shoulder, or the sudden disappearance of tenderness. In romantic relationships, love withdrawal is a brutal form of emotional manipulation. Imagine a partner who pulls back affection when you express an opinion they don't agree with, or fail to meet their expectations. The once loving words, the gentle touch, the reassuring smiles, all vanish without explanation. They may refuse to talk, avoid physical closeness, or withhold small gestures of care that you've grown to rely on. Their message is clear: you've fallen short, and until you comply with their wishes or apologize for your perceived wrong, you'll be left alone in emotional isolation. This tactic is devastating because it creates a direct link between behavior and love, conditioning you to believe that affection is something you must earn. It trains you to prioritize their needs, wants, and expectations above your own, fearing that any deviation will result in rejection. Over time, you may lose touch with your own identity, reshaping yourself into the person they want you to be, not out of genuine love, but out of a desperate need to avoid the pain of their coldness. In parent-child relationships, love withdrawal is particularly harmful. A parent might say, "I can't even look at you right now," after the child makes a mistake. Or they might withhold hugs, smiles, or verbal affirmations of love until the child fixes their behavior. The child, unable to understand the complexities of adult emotions, internalizes the idea that love is conditional, something that can be taken away if they aren't good enough. This can lead to lifelong struggles with self-worth, as the child grows into an adult who believes they must always perform or please to deserve love. Friendships and professional relationships aren't immune to this tactic either. A friend might stop talking to you, cancel plans, or ignore your messages as a way to punish you for not agreeing with them or prioritizing their needs. In the workplace, a manipulative colleague or superior might withdraw praise or acknowledgement, leaving you feeling invisible or unappreciated until you conform to their expectations. The underlying mechanism is always the same: control through emotional deprivation. The emotional impact of love withdrawal is profound and enduring. It triggers feelings of abandonment, rejection, and worthlessness. When someone you care about withdraws their affection, it's easy to spiral into self-blame, questioning what you did wrong and how you can fix it. You might replay conversations in your mind, analyzing every word, searching for the misstep that caused their coldness. This self-doubt can become paralyzing, leaving you emotionally dependent on the manipulator's approval and desperate for the return of their affection. What makes love withdrawal so insidious is its subtlety. Unlike outright abuse, it can be difficult to recognize and even harder to articulate. "They're just upset," you might tell yourself, or "maybe I am overreacting." The manipulator may even gaslight you, denying their behavior or framing it as your fault. I'm not withdrawing, you're just too sensitive. Over time, this dynamic can erode your confidence and sense of reality, making it harder to stand up for yourself. Breaking free from the grip of love, withdrawal requires courage and self-awareness. The first step is to recognize it for what it is: a manipulation tactic that weaponizes affection. Ask yourself, is their love truly unconditional, or does it come with strings attached? Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, understanding, and support, not fear of rejection or punishment. If you're on the receiving end of love withdrawal, it's important to set boundaries. Communicate your feelings clearly. I feel hurt and confused when you pull away from me like this. Can we talk about what's going on? A genuine partner or friend will be willing to engage in an open and honest conversation. If they dismiss your concerns or continue to use withdrawal as a weapon, it may be a sign that the relationship is unhealthy or toxic. For those who find themselves using love withdrawal as a tactic, it's crucial to reflect on your behavior. Why do you feel the need to withhold affection? Are you trying to avoid vulnerability, or are you seeking control? Love is not a bargaining chip or a weapon. It's a gift that should be freely given, even in moments of conflict or disagreement. Learning to express your needs and frustrations without resorting to emotional manipulation can lead to stronger, more authentic connections. Ultimately, love withdrawal is a betrayal of trust. It takes something that should be a source of comfort and security, love, and turns it into a tool for control. But love, in its truest form, is not conditional. It doesn't vanish when mistakes are made or disagreements arise. Real love is steady, forgiving, and unwavering, providing a foundation for growth and connection. Recognizing the difference between genuine love and manipulation is the first step toward protecting your heart and reclaiming your emotional freedom. 19. False promises. False promises are the shimmering mirage in a desert of doubt, enticing, dazzling, and utterly deceptive. They are words strung together with an air of certainty, laced with just enough hope to keep someone tethered, even when the speaker has no intention of following through. This tactic preys on trust and the deep-seated human need to believe in something better, leaving its victims stranded in a cycle of expectation and disappointment. Imagine this scenario. A partner promises to change, swearing that things will get better. I'll work on myself, they say. Just give me time. The words sound sincere, the emotions behind them seem real. So, you hold on, imagining a brighter future where their actions align with their promises. But days turn into weeks, and weeks into months, and nothing changes. Each time you confront them, another promise is made, a new deadline set, but the results remain the same, non-existent. You're left questioning whether you're asking for too much, whether your expectations are unreasonable. False promises are a form of emotional manipulation that relies on hope as a weapon. They thrive in relationships of all kinds, romantic, professional, familial, because hope is a powerful force. People want to believe that others will follow through, that the commitments made to them are genuine. But manipulators use this trust not as a bond, but as a chain, keeping their victims in a state of suspended belief, always waiting for the fulfillment of a promise that will never come. In romantic relationships, false promises often appear as commitments to change or gestures of future love. I'll marry you when the time is right. I'll quit drinking after this weekend, or I'll be better for you. I just need a little more patience. These declarations sound grand and heartfelt, but without action they become empty words. Each unfulfilled promise chips away at your confidence, leaving you questioning your worth and feeling stuck in a perpetual limbo of waiting for something that might never happen. In the workplace, false promises manifest as dangling. Carrots, promotions that never materialize, raises that are just around the corner, or opportunities that always seem to slip through the cracks. Keep working hard and you'll see the rewards, your manager might say, even as months pass without recognition. These empty commitments keep employees invested, working harder, and sacrificing their time and energy for something that is ultimately unattainable. The emotional toll is one of frustration, burnout, and disillusionment. Even in friendships and family dynamics, false promises wreak havoc. A friend might promise to always be there for you, but disappears when you need them most. A parent might pledge to make time for you, but continually breaks those plans. Each broken commitment deepens the wound of betrayal, making it harder to trust others in the future. What makes false promises so effective as a manipulation tool is their ability to create a sense of obligation. When someone promises you something, it sets up an unspoken contract. They've given you their word, and in return, you give them your trust. Breaking that contract doesn't just disappoint you, it leaves you questioning your own judgment. Why did I believe them? You ask yourself, as the blame shifts inward. The emotional impact of false promises is profound. They instill hope and anticipation, only to snatch it away, leaving behind a void filled with hurt and resentment. Over time, this cycle can lead to emotional exhaustion, a sense of powerlessness, and an erosion of trust, not just in the person making the promises, but in others as well. To protect yourself from the damage of false promises, it's essential to recognize the pattern early on. Look for repeated instances where actions don't align with words. One broken promise might be an accident, but a series of them reveals a deeper issue. Confront the behavior directly. You've said this before, but nothing has changed. Can you help me understand why? A sincere person will acknowledge their mistake and take concrete steps to correct it. A manipulator will likely double down, offering more promises without substance. If you find yourself using false promises as a tactic, take a moment to reflect on why. Are you trying to avoid confrontation or disappointment? Do you feel pressure to say what others want to hear, even when you can't deliver? Recognizing this behavior is the first step toward change. Instead of making empty commitments, focus on being honest about your limitations and intentions. Authenticity, even when uncomfortable, builds stronger, healthier relationships than false hope ever could. False promises may seem harmless on the surface, but their impact cuts deep. They string people along, fostering dependency and eroding trust. Every unfulfilled commitment becomes a scar, a reminder of betrayal disguised as hope. True connections are built on honesty and follow-through, not illusions. By recognizing the manipulative nature of false promises and standing firm in your own truth, you can break free from their emotional grip and demand the authenticity you deserve. 20. Isolation. Isolation is one of the most insidious forms of manipulation, a tactic that quietly dismantles the connections a person has to the world around them. It's not loud or overtly aggressive, but slow, subtle, and deeply destructive. By cutting someone off from their support network, manipulators create an emotional vacuum, making themselves the sole source of comfort, guidance, and validation. This tactic is as effective as it is cruel, preying on the human need for belonging while ensuring that dependency becomes inescapable. Imagine a romantic relationship where, at first, your partner seems to want all your time and attention. It feels flattering, even intoxicating, to be the center of their world. "I just want you all to myself," they say, their words dripping with affection. But slowly, their possessiveness turns into control. They start questioning your friendships. Why do you even bother with her? She doesn't really care about you. They undermine your family ties. Your family never understands you like I do. What began as a whirlwind romance becomes a prison where every connection outside of them is eroded. one excuse at a time. The result? Isolation. You look around and realize the people who once stood by you, your friends, your family, your colleagues, are no longer as close. Some have grown distant because you've been pushed to neglect those relationships. Others have been outright severed by the manipulator's influence. And in the hollow silence of your new world, the manipulator steps in as your sole confidant, your only source of emotional sustenance. In family dynamics, isolation can take on an even more profound form. A controlling parent might discourage their child from forming close friendships or seeking independence, claiming it's for their own good. You don't need anyone else, they might say. You have your family, and that's all that matters. This not only stunts the child's ability to form meaningful external relationships, but also ensures that they remain reliant on the family's approval and support well into adulthood. Workplace isolation, though less personal, can be equally devastating. A manipulative boss might subtly exclude you from meetings, limit your access to key resources, or discourage collaboration with colleagues. Over time, you feel cut off, unsupported, and unsure of where you stand. This isolation is a calculated move to weaken your confidence and make you more reliant on the manipulator for direction and approval. The emotional toll of isolation is immense. It fosters loneliness, self-doubt, and a growing sense of helplessness. Without a support network, you lose the sounding boards that help you process experiences and validate your feelings. You start questioning your own reality, unsure if your thoughts and emotions are valid. The manipulator's voice grows louder in your life, drowning out your instincts and making their version of events feel like the only truth. Isolation also creates a dangerous dependency. When someone becomes your sole source of emotional or practical support, leaving them feels impossible. Who would I turn to, you might wonder? Who would even understand what I'm going through? This dependency is precisely what the manipulator wants: complete control, achieved by severing every lifeline that might pull you away from them. Breaking free from isolation requires both recognition and courage. The first step is to see it for what it is, a deliberate strategy to cut you off and weaken your autonomy. Ask yourself, when was the last time I connected with my friends or family without guilt or fear of upsetting someone? Have I started to feel like I can't make decisions without this person's input? These are red flags that isolation is at play. Once you recognize the pattern, it's crucial to rebuild your connections. Reach out to old friends or family members, even if it feels awkward or difficult. Explain your situation honestly if you feel safe doing so, or simply start with small conversations to re-establish trust and familiarity. Building a support network might take time, especially if those relationships have been strained, but every step toward reconnection weakens the manipulator's hold on you. For those who find themselves using isolation as a tactic, it's vital to reflect on the underlying reasons. Are you afraid of losing control? Do you feel insecure about your place in someone's life? While these feelings might explain the behavior, they don't justify it. Healthy relationships are built on trust and mutual respect, not control or fear. Learning to embrace vulnerability and allow your loved ones the freedom to maintain their own connections is a critical step toward fostering genuine, lasting bonds. Isolation is more than physical separation. It's an emotional cage that traps its victim in loneliness and dependency. It distorts relationships, erodes confidence, and leaves a lasting scar on the soul. But no cage is unbreakable. By recognizing the manipulation, reclaiming your connections, and asserting your right to independence, you can rebuild the life and relationships you deserve. True love and support don't isolate. They empower, uplift, and encourage you to thrive in a world full of meaningful connections. 21. Fear-Mongering. Fear is one of the most primal and potent emotions we experience, a visceral response designed to keep us safe from harm. But when wielded as a tool of manipulation, fear becomes something far darker. Fear-mongering is the art of overstating dangers or risks to seize control of someone's decisions, thoughts, and actions. It creates a distorted reality where choices are driven not by logic or desire, but by a desperate need to escape an exaggerated threat. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath your feet, while someone behind you screams, "Don't look back. The only way to survive is to do what I say." Your heart races, your palms sweat, and in the chaos of that moment, you cling to their words, trusting their guidance over your own instincts. This is the essence of fear-mongering, a manipulator conjuring danger to keep you tethered to their control. In relationships, fear-mongering often manifests as a partner, painting the world as hostile and unsafe, convincing you that they're the only person you can trust. "No one else will ever love you like I do," they might say. Or, "If you leave me, you'll never find someone who will care for you." They craft a narrative of doom outside the relationship, fostering dependency by making you believe that your safety and happiness hinge entirely on staying with them. In politics and media, fear-mongering is a well-worn tactic used to sway public opinion and decision-making. Leaders, advertisers, and pundits magnify risks, exaggerate threats, and peddle worst-case scenarios to manipulate the masses. "If you vote for them, it'll be the end of our way of life. If you don't buy this product, your family could be in danger." Fear becomes a currency, traded for compliance and control. In the workplace, fear-mongering can be used to stifle dissent or motivate overperformance. A boss might warn, "If we don't hit these numbers, layoffs are inevitable," even when the company's financial stability isn't truly at risk. Employees, gripped by anxiety, overextend themselves, sacrificing their well-being to avoid an imagined catastrophe. The effectiveness of fear-mongering lies in its ability to hijack rational thinking. When fear takes hold, the brain shifts into survival mode, prioritizing immediate safety over long-term reasoning. Logical analysis is replaced by impulsive decisions designed to mitigate the perceived danger. A manipulator leveraging fear knows this and exploits it, amplifying anxieties until the victim feels they have no choice but to comply. The emotional toll of fear-mongering is immense. Living in a state of heightened anxiety erodes trust, damages self-confidence, and creates a constant sense of vulnerability. Victims of this tactic often feel trapped, unable to discern real threats from fabricated ones. Over time, they may become emotionally exhausted, too worn down to challenge the manipulator's narrative or seek alternative perspectives. To recognize fear-mongering, it's essential to scrutinize the source of the fear. Who benefits from this narrative? Ask yourself if the danger being presented is supported by credible evidence, or if it's being exaggerated for emotional impact. Pay attention to whether the person creating the fear offers practical solutions or merely stokes the flames to maintain control. Overcoming fear-mongering requires reclaiming your sense of agency. Seek out multiple perspectives, gather facts, and evaluate the situation with a critical eye. Surround yourself with trusted individuals who can provide clarity and reassurance. Often, fear loses its grip when exposed to the light of truth. If you've used fear-mongering as a tactic, reflect on your motivations. Are you manipulating others to feel powerful or to avoid losing control? Recognizing this behavior is a difficult but necessary step toward change. Building trust and fostering open, honest communication will achieve far more lasting and meaningful results than wielding fear ever could. Fear-mongering may feel like an effective way to sway decisions, but its victories are hollow. The compliance, It breeds is born of desperation, not respect or agreement. True influence comes from empowering others, not enslaving them to fear. In dismantling fear-mongering, we reclaim the power to make decisions not from a place of terror, but from strength, courage and understanding. 22. Future faking. Future faking is the shimmering mirage that keeps you walking through an endless desert, chasing a promise of paradise that never comes. It's a manipulation tactic where someone paints a vivid picture of a better future. A future filled with hope, love or success to influence your actions in the present. But the cruel twist is that this vision was never meant to come true. It's a tool of control, a dangling carrot designed to keep you compliant and invested. Imagine your partner telling you, "Next year, we'll travel the world together. I'll save up, and we'll see all the places you've always dreamed of." Their eyes gleam with sincerity, and you're swept up in the dream. But the year comes and goes, and the promise fades into a blur of excuses. Work got too busy. Money was tight, it's just not the right time. Maybe next year, they say, resetting the cycle. The promises sound genuine, but the intention to follow through was never there. Future faking works because it taps into one of the most powerful human motivators, hope. Hope drives us forward, makes us endure challenges, and gives us a reason to believe that tomorrow will be better than today. But when hope is weaponized, it becomes a chain. The manipulator's promises keep you tethered, willingly enduring their behavior or meeting their demands because you're invested in the future they've sold you. In romantic relationships, future faking is particularly insidious. A partner might promise marriage, children, or a stable life together, using these pledges to keep you from leaving or questioning their commitment. They might dangle dreams of shared success like, "Once I get that promotion, we'll buy a house together." Or B, "When things settle down, we'll finally start our family." These promises pacify you, making it harder to confront the reality that their actions don't align with their words. In professional settings, future faking shows up in empty promises of advancement. A boss might say, "Stick with us for another 6 months, and you'll get that promotion," even when there's no intention to offer it. You work harder, sacrifice more, and stay loyal, all for an opportunity that remains just out of reach. Even friendships aren't immune to future faking. A friend might promise, "Next time I'll make time for you," or "I'll be there for you when it really matters." But when that next time comes, they're absent, leaving you questioning their sincerity. The emotional impact of future faking is profound. It creates a cycle of anticipation and disappointment that leaves you emotionally drained. Each broken promise chips away at your trust and self-esteem. You start doubting your worth, wondering if you're asking for too much or if you misunderstood their intentions. Worse, you might cling to the hope that the next promise will be different, unwilling to let go of the vision they've painted. Recognizing future faking requires a sharp eye for patterns. One broken promise might be an oversight, but repeated instances where someone's actions don't align with their words are a red flag. Ask yourself, what evidence do I have that they're working toward the future they've promised? Are their words backed by actions, or do they rely solely on my trust to keep me invested? To protect yourself, focus on the present. Evaluate relationships based on what is happening now, not what is being promised for the future. Set clear boundaries and expectations and hold the person accountable for their commitments. If they continue to make promises without delivering, it's time to reevaluate whether they deserve your trust. If you've used future faking as a tactic, it's essential to reflect on the harm it causes. Promising something you have no intention of delivering manipulates others' emotions and creates false hope. Instead of making empty promises, strive for honesty, even when it's difficult. Genuine relationships are built on trust and transparency, not illusions. Future faking is the art of selling dreams with no intention of building them. It may keep someone hooked for a time, but it erodes the very foundation of trust and respect that relationships need to thrive. By choosing authenticity over manipulation, we can build connections rooted in truth, where hope becomes a shared vision backed by genuine effort, not a tool of control. 23. Stonewalling. Stonewalling is the act of erecting an unyielding wall of silence in the face of conflict, questions, or confrontation. It's the refusal to engage, communicate, or address issues, leaving the other person stranded in the deafening void of unanswered pleas and unresolved emotions. To those on the receiving end, stonewalling feels like shouting into a canyon, only to hear their own pain echo back, unanswered and unacknowledged. Imagine a partner who, after an argument, sits in stony silence. You ask, "Can we talk about what just happened?" They don't respond. You try again, softer this time. "Please, I just want to understand." Still nothing. Only their cold detachment as they scroll through their phone, turn up the TV, or simply walk away. Each attempt you make feels like throwing pebbles against an unbreakable wall, and eventually you stop trying. Stonewalling is a tactic rooted in control. By refusing to engage, the manipulator shifts the power dynamic entirely in their favor. They dictate the terms of communication, deciding when or if the matter will be addressed. This silent resistance forces the other person into an agonizing limbo, their feelings dismissed, their concerns left to wither in the unspoken space. In romantic relationships, stonewalling often creates a toxic cycle of frustration and desperation. One partner, eager to resolve an issue, finds themselves chasing the emotional equivalent of a ghost. "What did I do wrong?" they ask. But the stonewaller's silence offers no clues, only amplifying the sense of helplessness. Over time, this erodes trust and intimacy, leaving both parties emotionally estranged. In friendships, stonewalling can be just as damaging. A friend who suddenly stops responding to texts or avoids confrontation about a misunderstanding may leave, you questioning everything. Did I offend them? Do they even care about this relationship? The absence of communication feels like abandonment, compounding the hurt of the original issue. In workplaces, stonewalling can stifle collaboration and morale. A manager who ignores employee concerns or refuses to address workplace conflicts creates an environment of fear and stagnation. Employees may feel unheard, undervalued, and powerless to create change. The emotional toll of stonewalling is profound. Silence in the face of conflict invalidates the other person's feelings and experiences, leaving them to bear the weight of the unresolved issue alone. It fosters feelings of rejection, inadequacy, and self-doubt. For some, the silence can be more painful than harsh words. At least words offer acknowledgement, a chance to respond or defend oneself. Recognizing stonewalling requires an honest evaluation of the dynamics in your interactions. If you find yourself repeatedly met with silence or avoidance when trying to address important matters, you may be facing this manipulative tactic. Does the person refuse to engage, no matter how calmly or respectfully you approach the topic? Do they deflect, walk away, or change the subject to avoid meaningful conversation? These are telltale signs of stonewalling. To counter stonewalling, it's essential to set boundaries and advocate for your need to be heard. Calmly but firmly state, "I need to discuss this with you, and I feel hurt when my attempts are ignored." If the silence persists, consider whether this relationship is serving your emotional well-being. No connection, romantic, platonic, or professional, should leave you feeling unheard and dismissed. For those who resort to stonewalling, it's crucial to understand the impact of this behavior. Silence might feel like self-protection, a way to avoid conflict or maintain control, but it only deepens the divide. By refusing to engage, you deny the other person the opportunity to share their feelings and work toward resolution. Healthy relationships thrive on open communication, even when it's uncomfortable or challenging. Stonewalling might seem like a fortress of protection, but it's really a prison, both for the one who builds it and the one left outside its walls. Breaking free requires courage, vulnerability, and the willingness to face the discomfort of honest dialogue. Only then can relationships grow beyond silence, into spaces of understanding, respect, and true connection. 24. False comparisons. False comparisons are the quiet daggers that cut at confidence and self-worth. This manipulation tactic involves unfairly comparing someone to others to make them feel inadequate or unworthy. The manipulator carefully crafts these comparisons to highlight supposed shortcomings, creating an impossible standard that leaves the victim feeling less than, no matter how hard they try. Imagine a parent saying, "Why can't you be more like your brother? He gets straight A's and never causes trouble." The words land like a weight on your shoulders, crushing your sense of individuality and worth. No matter what you accomplish, it feels as though you'll never measure up because the comparison is always tilted in favor of someone else. In romantic relationships, false comparisons can be even more devastating. A partner might say, "My ex used to always dress up for me, why don't you?" Or, "Other couples go on exciting trips, why can't we do that?" Each comment plants a seed of doubt, making you question whether you're good enough or if you'll ever be able to meet their expectations. In the workplace, false comparisons might sound like, "Your coworker finished this project in half the time you did," or "The other team didn't have any issues, why are you struggling?" These statements not only undermine confidence, but also create a culture of unhealthy competition and resentment. The power of false comparisons lies in their subtlety. On the surface, they can seem harmless, just observations or constructive criticism, but beneath the veneer, they're designed to erode confidence and foster a sense of inadequacy. The victim begins to internalize the belief that they are inferior, perpetually falling short of an arbitrary standard set by the manipulator. The emotional toll of false comparisons is profound. Over time, they chip away at self-esteem, leaving the victim feeling small and unworthy. They may start to obsess over their flaws, comparing themselves to others in a constant quest for validation. This creates a toxic cycle where self-worth becomes tied to an unattainable ideal, leading to anxiety, depression, and a deep sense of dissatisfaction. Recognizing false comparisons requires an awareness of their inherent unfairness. Ask yourself, are these comparisons constructive, or are they meant to diminish me? Is the person making them offering support to help me improve, or are they simply pointing out what I lack? False comparisons often involve selective information, highlighting strengths in others, while ignoring the victim's unique qualities or circumstances. To combat false comparisons, it's important to reclaim your sense of self-worth. Remind yourself that everyone's journey is different, and comparing yourself to others is like comparing apples to oranges. Celebrate your own achievements, no matter how small, and focus on your growth rather than someone else's highlight reel. If you've used false comparisons as a tactic, it's time to reflect on the harm they cause. While you might think you're motivating someone to improve, this approach often does the opposite, leaving them feeling demoralized and alienated. Instead, focus on offering encouragement and constructive feedback that fosters growth without tearing down their confidence. False comparisons are a manipulator's way of shifting the goalposts, ensuring you'll always feel like you're falling short. But the truth is, no one's worth can be measured against someone else's achievements or attributes. By rejecting the poisonous game of comparison, we can cultivate a world where individuality is celebrated and self-worth is rooted in authenticity, not in someone else's shadow. 25. Double bind. The double bind is a psychological snare, a cruel paradox where every choice leads to failure, criticism, or self-doubt. This tactic thrives on impossible expectations, creating a world where no decision is the right one. 4. The person caught in its grip. It feels like trying to walk a tightrope that doesn't exist. Each step forward only proves the futility of the effort. Picture this. A boss says, "I need you to be more independent, but don't act without my approval. No matter what you do, you're wrong. If you take initiative, you're criticized for overstepping. If you wait for approval, you're labeled passive or incapable." This catch-22 isn't about performance, it's about control, keeping you perpetually off balance and questioning your every move. In personal relationships, the double bind might sound like a partner saying, "Why don't you ever take time for yourself? But when you're away, I feel like you don't care about me." It's a subtle manipulation designed to create guilt no matter what choice you make. Stay close, and you're accused of being clingy. Take space, and you're branded as neglectful. Parents can use the double bind to exert control over children, often unintentionally. A parent might say, "I want you to be honest with me, but how could you even think of doing something like that?" This creates a dilemma. Tell the truth and face judgment, or hide the truth and feel deceitful. The child is left navigating a maze of conflicting expectations with no clear way out. What makes the double bind so insidious is its inherent unfairness. The manipulator establishes contradictory rules, ensuring that any decision becomes ammunition for critique. Over time, this erodes confidence and creates a paralyzing fear of making decisions. Victims often feel trapped, unable to escape the constant cycle of blame and second-guessing. The emotional impact of being caught in a double bind is profound. It fosters anxiety, frustration, and a deep sense of inadequacy. When every choice feels wrong, it's easy to internalize the belief that you are the problem, that no matter how hard you try, you'll never get it right. This can lead to learned helplessness, a state where the victim stops trying altogether because the effort seems futile. To recognize a double bind, look for scenarios where the rules seem contradictory or where criticism is inevitable no matter what you do. Ask yourself, am I being held to inconsistent standards? Does this person seem more interested in pointing out my failures than helping me succeed? The key to breaking free is understanding that the problem isn't with your choices, it's with the manipulator's framework. When confronting a double bind, clarity and boundaries are essential. Address the contradictions directly by asking, "Can you clarify what you're expecting of me? I want to make the right choice, but I need a clear understanding of your expectations." This forces the manipulator to acknowledge their conflicting demands, disrupting the power dynamic. If you've used the double bind as a tactic, it's important to reflect on why. Often, this behavior stems from insecurity or a desire to control situations out of fear or uncertainty. Recognize the harm this creates and strive to communicate openly and honestly, setting clear and fair expectations for others. The double bind is a game rigged for failure, a labyrinth with no exit. But by recognizing the tactic and refusing to play along, you can reclaim your agency and dismantle the manipulator's control. True relationships, whether personal or professional, thrive on trust, clarity, and mutual respect, not on traps designed to keep you perpetually doubting yourself. 26. Moving the goalposts. Moving the goalposts is a manipulation tactic designed to keep someone in a perpetual state of striving, no matter how much they achieve. It's the art of constantly changing expectations, ensuring that success is always just out of reach. For the person on the receiving end, it's an exhausting, demoralizing game of almost there that ultimately drains confidence and self-worth. Imagine being in a relationship where nothing you do is ever enough. Your partner says, "I'd feel more loved if you called me more often." You make an effort to check in daily, only to hear, "It's not just the calls. I wish you'd plan more romantic dates." When you plan the dates, they shift the expectation again. But what about quality time at home? The rules keep changing, and the finish line keeps moving, leaving you in a constant state of inadequacy. In the workplace, this tactic is often used by bosses or managers who want to maintain control. A boss might say, "If you hit your sales target, we'll talk about a promotion. You work tirelessly to meet the target, but when you succeed, the requirements change. Well, now we need to see consistency over the next quarter." Just when you think you've earned recognition, the bar is raised again, keeping you stuck in a cycle of chasing approval that never comes. Parents can unintentionally use this tactic too, setting ever-changing standards for their children. "If you get good grades, we'll be proud of you." But when the child brings home an A, the parents respond, "That's great, but why isn't it an A+?" The child learns that no matter what they do, it will never be enough, planting seeds of self-doubt and perfectionism that can last a lifetime. The emotional toll of moving the goalposts is devastating. It creates a constant sense of inadequacy, as though you're running a marathon that never ends. Each time you think you've reached a milestone, the goal shifts, leaving you feeling like you've failed. Over time, this erodes confidence, fosters resentment, and creates a deep sense of frustration and helplessness. What makes this tactic so insidious is its subtlety. On the surface, it can seem like the manipulator is setting goals or encouraging improvement, but the reality is that their shifting expectations are designed to keep you striving, not succeeding. Their approval becomes the prize, and they hold it just out of reach, maintaining control over your actions and emotions. To recognize when someone is moving the goalposts, pay attention to patterns in their behavior. Ask yourself, do their expectations change every time I meet them? Are they acknowledging my efforts and progress, or do they constantly find new flaws or demands? A hallmark of this tactic is the lack of satisfaction or recognition, no matter how much you achieve. Breaking free from this manipulation requires setting boundaries and asserting your self-worth. Clearly communicate your limits by saying, "I've worked hard to meet the expectations you set, and I need acknowledgement for what I've accomplished before taking on anything new." Refuse to participate in a cycle that only serves to undermine your confidence and keep you striving for unattainable approval. If you've used this tactic, it's time to reflect on the damage it causes. Continuously raising expectations may feel like a way to encourage others to improve, but it ultimately creates frustration and a sense of futility. Instead, focus on setting clear, achievable goals and celebrating progress along the way. Recognize the true growth comes from encouragement and support, not an endless chase for validation. Moving the goalposts is a manipulator's way of keeping you running in circles, forever chasing their approval. But no one deserves to live in a world where success is always just out of reach. By recognizing this tactic and refusing to play the game, you can reclaim your sense of accomplishment and build relationships rooted in fairness, respect, and genuine recognition. 27. Preemptive Defense. Preemptive defense is the art of constructing a shield before any arrows are fired. This manipulation tactic involves addressing potential criticism before it's voiced, framing it in a way that makes any opposition seem unreasonable, overly harsh, or even unwarranted. It's a strategic move designed to disarm others, leaving them second-guessing their concerns and often silenced before they can speak. Picture this. A co-worker arrives late to a meeting and immediately says, "I know I'm late, but traffic was awful today. Honestly, it was impossible to avoid." Before anyone can comment, they've preemptively explained their actions, casting themselves as a victim of circumstances. Any frustration the group feels now seems misplaced, as if they'd be heartless to challenge someone who couldn't help it. In relationships, this tactic often shows up in conversations where accountability should be addressed. A partner might say, "I know I forgot our anniversary plans, but you've got to understand how stressful work has been. I'm doing my best." The focus shifts from the missed commitment to their excuses, leaving the other person feeling guilty for even considering criticism. The effectiveness of preemptive defense lies in its subtlety. By anticipating potential criticisms and addressing them first, the manipulator shapes the narrative, controlling how others perceive the situation. It places critics on the defensive, as though they're being unfair or overly demanding simply for raising valid points. Emotionally, being on the receiving end of this tactic is frustrating and disorienting. You may feel silenced or even guilty for voicing your concerns because the preemptive defense makes it seem like you're piling on someone who's already justified themselves. Over time, this can lead to a breakdown in honest communication, as you learn to suppress your feelings to avoid being seen as unreasonable. In workplaces, preemptive defense can create an atmosphere of evasion and deflection. A manager might say, "I know some people are going to criticize this decision, but this is the best option under the circumstances." By framing any dissent as unwarranted negativity, they discourage constructive feedback and stifle open dialogue. To recognize preemptive defense, listen for statements that anticipate criticism and frame it as unjust before it's even voiced. Ask yourself, is this person genuinely addressing the issue, or are they trying to preemptively avoid accountability? Do I feel like my perspective is being dismissed before I even share it? Addressing this tactic requires clarity and confidence. Acknowledge the preemptive defense, but redirect the conversation to the core issue. For example, you might say, "I understand that traffic was difficult, but I'd still like to discuss the impact of your late arrival on the team." This approach validates their perspective without letting it overshadow the concern you're raising. If you find yourself using preemptive defense, it's important to reflect on your motivations. Are you genuinely addressing potential issues, or are you trying to avoid accountability? While it's natural to want to protect yourself from criticism, true growth comes from being open to feedback and addressing concerns directly. Preemptive defense may seem like a clever way to avoid conflict, but it ultimately undermines trust and stifles honest communication. Relationships and collaborations thrive when all parties feel heard and respected, not when one person controls the narrative to shield themselves from accountability. By rejecting this tactic and embracing open dialogue, we create spaces where criticism isn't feared but valued as a tool for growth and understanding. 28. Playing dumb. Playing dumb is the master stroke of evasion, an act of feigned ignorance designed to wriggle out of responsibility, deflect accountability, and escape scrutiny. It's the manipulator's way of pretending not to understand, not to know, or not to see something that's painfully obvious, all in an effort to avoid facing consequences. The emotional toll this takes is profound, because it diminishes the value of your concerns, leaving you frustrated and questioning your own perception of reality. Imagine a partner repeatedly forgetting important dates, birthdays, anniversaries, or critical conversations. When confronted, they respond with, "I didn't even realize it was that time. I had no idea it was so important." Their tone is one of innocent surprise, as if they are completely unaware of the hurt they've caused. But beneath the surface, it's a deliberate tactic, one meant to diminish your feelings and avoid the discomfort of accountability. The manipulation lies in making you feel like the unreasonable one for expecting them to remember or care. In the workplace, playing dumb is often used to avoid blame or shift responsibility. A team member might respond to a missed deadline by saying, "Oh, "I didn't know the project was that urgent. I thought we had more time." They feign confusion about what's clear to everyone else, shifting the burden of responsibility onto the rest of the team while avoiding any real consequences. The act of not knowing renders them harmless, making others feel petty or unreasonable for bringing up their lack of effort. Even in friendships, playing dumb can be a way of avoiding difficult conversations. A friend might constantly cancel plans and when confronted say, "Oh, I totally forgot. I didn't mean to let you down." The feigned ignorance shuts down any attempt at confrontation, leaving the other person feeling like they're overreacting to something that, in the manipulator's mind, wasn't even worth remembering. The emotional impact of playing dumb is maddening. It forces you to question your own perception, to wonder if you're expecting too much or if you're the one misunderstanding the situation. The manipulator gets to dodge accountability while you're left holding the emotional weight, feeling like the one at fault for raising concerns. Over time, this tactic chips away at your confidence, making you doubt your instincts and question your value in the relationship. Recognizing this behavior is key to breaking free from its grasp. If someone continually pretends to be unaware of their actions or their impact on you, ask yourself, are they really that clueless, or are they intentionally avoiding responsibility? Is their response aimed at deflecting blame, or is it genuinely an innocent mistake? Playing dumb is rarely about lack of knowledge. It's about using ignorance as a shield against the discomfort of owning up to one's actions. To combat this manipulation, you must assert yourself firmly and calmly. Call attention to the behavior and refuse to accept the act of feigned ignorance. For instance, instead of accepting the "I didn't know," you might say, "I've mentioned this before and it's important to me. It's not just about forgetting, it's about understanding how it makes me feel." Hold your ground and don't let the manipulator use their innocence as an excuse to escape responsibility. If you find yourself resorting to playing dumb, it's time to reflect on why. Avoiding accountability can feel like an easy way out, but in the long run, it damages relationships and erodes trust. True growth comes from owning your actions, learning from your mistakes, and embracing responsibility with grace. Playing dumb is a manipulator's shield against discomfort, but it's also a weapon that leaves others feeling unheard and disrespected. By recognizing this tactic and refusing to let it undermine your voice, you can create spaces where accountability is embraced and real conversations lead to genuine understanding. 29. Bait and switch. Bait and switch is a manipulation tactic that plays on hope and trust, drawing people in with something enticing, only to change the terms once they're already invested. It's the promise of one thing, only to deliver something completely different, or worse, nothing at all. This emotional sleight of hand leaves people feeling duped, disillusioned, and trapped. It's a tactic that thrives on the emotional investment of others, preying on their desire for something better, only to leave them with the bitter sting of betrayal when expectations are crushed. Imagine you're excited about a job offer, where the salary and benefits are clearly outlined in a glowing proposal. You've weighed the decision, packed up your life, and made plans to join the new company. But when you walk in on your first day, you find out that the salary is lower than advertised and the promised benefits are nowhere to be found. The terms were altered after you had already committed, leaving you feeling like you've been duped into accepting something far less than what was originally promised. The trust you had in the offer vanishes, replaced by the crushing realization that you've been manipulated. In relationships, bait and switch can manifest in subtle yet damaging ways. A partner might initially promise deep emotional support, but once you're committed, their actions change. The romantic gestures, thoughtful communication, and promises of forever shift into indifference, or worse, emotional neglect. They reel you in with the promises of love and commitment, only to leave you heartbroken when the reality doesn't match the promises. The shift in behavior can be so stark that it leaves you questioning your worth, wondering why the person you trusted would deceive you in such a painful way. Even in everyday social situations, the bait-and-switch tactic can leave people feeling manipulated. A friend invites you out for a fun evening with promises of a great time, only to arrive and realize they've planned the evening around their own needs, leaving you to feel like an afterthought or worse, a tool to fulfill their agenda. You were sold one version of the night, only to experience something entirely different. The disappointment is not just in the lost time, but in the feeling of being used. What makes the bait and switch so emotionally devastating is the way it plays with your expectations. It promises something that speaks to your deepest desires, only to pull the rug out from under you once you're already invested. It's a cruel trick, one that undermines trust and creates a lingering sense of betrayal. It can lead to feelings of insecurity, self-doubt, and even resentment, as the manipulator gets what they want at the cost of your emotional well-being. Recognizing bait and switch tactics requires vigilance and an awareness of patterns. Ask yourself, did this person promise something they now seem unwilling or unable to deliver? Are there significant changes in terms after I've already committed? The hallmark of the bait and switch is the sudden alteration of what was originally agreed upon, leaving you with nothing but the unsettling realization that you were deceived. To protect yourself from this manipulation, trust your instincts and ask for clarity before committing. If the terms of an agreement or relationship seem too good to be true, ask questions and ensure that everything is as it seems. When the bait and switch happens, it's important to voice your disappointment and address the manipulation directly. For example, when we agreed on this, the terms were clear. I expected what was promised, and I don't feel like that's being honored. Reclaim your power by standing up for what you were originally promised, and don't allow the manipulator to change the terms once you've already taken the bait. If you find yourself resorting to the bait and switch tactic, take a step back and consider the harm you're causing. Manipulating someone's expectations to serve your own agenda is not only unfair, but it also destroys trust and damages relationships. Instead of using deception to get what you want, strive for open communication and honesty, ensuring that others are fully informed and on board with the terms you're offering. The bait and switch is a cruel tactic that plays with people's emotions, but by recognizing it and standing firm, you can protect yourself from being deceived and reclaim your sense of trust and autonomy. Relationships and agreements built on honesty and mutual respect foster real growth, not the hollow promises that inevitably lead to disappointment. 30. Minimizing. Minimizing is the act of downplaying or belittling someone's concerns, emotions, or experiences, making them feel small, unimportant, or unreasonable. It's a manipulative tactic designed to invalidate your feelings, leaving you questioning your own perceptions and emotions. It's a subtle, insidious form of control, one that erodes your sense of self-worth and makes you feel like you're overreacting, even when your feelings are completely justified. Imagine confiding in a friend about how hurt you are after a difficult conversation, only for them to respond with, "Oh, come on, it's not a big deal. You're just being too sensitive." They brush aside your feelings, making you question if your pain is valid or if you're simply imagining things. What was once a legitimate concern is suddenly reduced to nothing more than an overreaction, and the burden shifts to you to prove your emotions are worthy of attention. In romantic relationships, minimizing can be particularly damaging. When you express frustration or sadness over something your partner did or didn't do, their response might be, "You're making a mountain out of a molehill. I didn't mean to hurt you." Their dismissive words push your feelings to the side, telling you that your emotional experience is less important than their intention, no matter how much they may have hurt you. This can make you feel like your emotional world is not to be taken seriously, forcing you to suppress or second-guess your own needs. At work, this tactic often shows up when a supervisor or colleague brushes off valid concerns with phrases like, "It's not a big issue, don't worry about it." If you raise a complaint about being overworked or treated unfairly, they minimize the situation by making you feel like you're exaggerating. Over time, this constant minimization chips away at your confidence and self-esteem, causing you to doubt whether your concerns are even worthy of bringing up. Minimizing isn't just about brushing off complaints, it's about altering the very nature of how you see yourself. By dismissing your emotions, manipulators make you question your own reality. They shift the focus from the issue at hand to your emotional state, suggesting that your feelings are the problem, not the actions that triggered them. You're left feeling like you're the one who is flawed, oversensitive, or irrational, even though your emotions are completely legitimate. The emotional toll of being minimized is profound. Over time, it erodes trust in your own instincts and feelings, leaving you feeling unheard and invisible. It plants seeds of doubt about whether your concerns are valid, and in doing so, it forces you into a position of silence. When your emotions are continuously downplayed, you learn to suppress them, to bottle them up, or even to question whether they should be expressed at all. Recognizing minimization requires being attuned to patterns of invalidation. If someone consistently dismisses or downplays your feelings, it's important to ask yourself, am I being treated as if my emotions aren't worthy of respect? Am I being told that my concerns are insignificant even when they deeply affect me? The hallmark of minimization is its ability to make you doubt your emotional reality, leaving you feeling diminished and unheard. To combat minimization, assert your right to be heard. Express your feelings clearly and confidently, and stand firm in the validity of your emotions. When someone minimizes your concerns, respond with, "I understand that you may not see it the same way, but this is how I feel, and it's important for me to be heard." Don't allow the manipulator to dismiss or belittle your emotions. Your feelings are real, and they deserve to be respected. If you find yourself engaging in minimizing others, it's time to reflect on the impact it has. Disregarding another person's emotions or making them feel small only serves to distance you from them, creating a divide rooted in disrespect. Instead, strive to validate the emotions of those around you, even if you don't fully understand or agree with them. Showing empathy and acknowledging feelings fosters trust and deeper connections. Minimizing is a dangerous tactic that chips away at your emotional foundation, leaving you questioning your worth and your feelings. But by recognizing it and standing up for your emotional reality, you can take back your power and stop allowing others to invalidate your truth. Your feelings are valid, and they deserve to be honored. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. 31. Feigned helplessness. Feigned helplessness is a manipulative tactic that revolves around pretending to be incapable or inept in order to shift responsibilities onto others. By faking vulnerability or incompetence, the manipulator creates the illusion that they need help, allowing them to avoid doing the work themselves and pass the burden onto someone else. This emotional ploy is designed to evoke feelings of sympathy, responsibility, and guilt, often making others feel obligated to step in and rescue them, even though they are fully capable of handling the situation on their own. Imagine a colleague at work who constantly claims they don't understand how to complete a simple task, despite having been shown how to do it multiple times. Every time the work needs to be done, they act confused, leaving you with no choice but to step in and do it for them. It's exhausting because while they make it seem like they're helpless, You can't help but feel the weight of their lack of initiative pressing down on you. What should be a shared responsibility becomes your sole duty, leaving you with the overwhelming sense that you're always cleaning up someone else's mess. In personal relationships, feigned helplessness can be just as damaging. A partner might constantly claim that they can't manage certain household chores, or they might act as though they're unable to take care of their own needs. They put on the act of being incapable, leaving you feeling like you should step in and handle everything. Over time, you begin to feel trapped, as if your needs and desires are secondary to their inability to do basic tasks. The emotional strain is real. You're left questioning why they can't manage on their own, while you carry the weight of everything. This manipulation isn't always blatant. Sometimes it's subtle, like a friend who pretends to not understand social cues, constantly relying on you to navigate social situations or make decisions for them. It's as though they have no agency, forcing you into a position where you feel guilty for not helping, even though it's clear they are capable of taking action themselves. The more they act helpless, the more it feels like you have no choice but to step in and do the work for them. The emotional toll of feigned helplessness is a combination of frustration, resentment, and helplessness. You're left feeling responsible for someone else's lack of initiative, and over time, the constant demand for your attention and effort leaves you drained. The manipulator's act of incapacity traps you in a cycle of overextension, where your own needs are overlooked as you constantly put others first. Feigned helplessness also plays on feelings of guilt. If you hesitate to help, you're made to feel callous or uncaring. The manipulator uses their feigned vulnerability as a way to exploit your compassion, making you feel like you're being cruel if you don't step in. The emotional blackmail is subtle but powerful. How could you not help me? I'm so helpless and I really need you. But the reality is that the manipulator is fully capable. They just choose to relinquish responsibility to avoid doing the work themselves. Recognizing feigned helplessness requires paying attention to patterns. Ask yourself, is this person genuinely incapable of handling this, or are they consistently relying on me to take over? Do they show any real effort to improve their situation, or do they perpetuate the illusion of helplessness? The hallmark of this manipulation is the lack of action and the constant deflection of responsibility, all while pretending to be in need. To confront this tactic, set boundaries and assertively redirect responsibility back onto the manipulator. If they claim they can't handle something, calmly respond with, "I understand that this is difficult for you, but you are fully capable of managing this yourself. I'll be here to support you if you truly need help, but you need to take initiative and handle your own responsibilities. Hold firm in your boundaries and don't allow guilt to push you into taking on more than you should." If you find yourself using feigned helplessness, take a moment to reflect on why. Do you truly lack the ability to handle situations, or are you trying to avoid the discomfort of responsibility? Recognizing this tendency can help you break free from it and build stronger, more balanced relationships based on mutual effort and accountability. Feigned helplessness is a manipulative tactic that shifts the burden of responsibility onto others, while fostering guilt and frustration. It preys on compassion and empathy, making people feel obligated to help, even when they shouldn't have to. By recognizing and addressing this tactic, you can protect your time, energy, and emotional well-being, and encourage those around you to take responsibility for their actions. Ultimately, healthy relationships require mutual effort, not one-sided manipulation disguised as helplessness. 32. Overloading with information. Overloading with information is a cunning manipulation tactic that involves bombarding someone with excessive details to create confusion, distraction, or misdirection. By overwhelming the target with an avalanche of data, facts, or unnecessary context, the manipulator ensures that the true message or intent becomes lost in the noise. This tactic isn't just about sharing information, it's about weaponizing it to disorient and dominate. Imagine sitting in a meeting where a colleague presents a report packed with irrelevant statistics, technical jargon, and convoluted explanations. As they speak, you find yourself drowning in details, unable to discern the main point or make an informed decision. The manipulator thrives on this chaos, steering the conversation in their favor while you struggle to keep up. What should have been a straightforward discussion turns into an exhausting maze, leaving you mentally fatigued and more likely to defer to their perspective. In personal relationships, this tactic can be equally draining. A partner might over-explain their behavior, giving you a flood of justifications and unrelated anecdotes whenever you raise a concern. Their goal is clear: to sidetrack you from the original issue by making the situation so convoluted that you're left questioning your own understanding. The result? They escape accountability while you're left mentally spinning, unsure of how to proceed. Overloading with information often masquerades as transparency or intellectual depth. The manipulator may present themselves as knowledgeable or thorough, but their true intention is to obscure the truth. They rely on the human tendency to feel overwhelmed by too many details, knowing that the brain struggles to prioritize and analyze excessive input. This confusion creates an opportunity for them to assert control, subtly guiding decisions or perceptions without direct confrontation. The emotional toll of this tactic is profound. You're left feeling disoriented, inadequate, and mentally drained. The constant barrage of information creates a fog, making it difficult to see the bigger picture or trust your own judgment. Over time, this manipulation erodes your confidence, leaving you more susceptible to further control. To counter this tactic, focus on clarity and simplicity. When faced with an overload of information, pause and ask direct questions. What is the key point here? Or can you summarize this in one sentence? By redirecting the conversation to its core, you strip away the manipulator's power to distract and confuse. If you notice yourself employing this tactic, reflect on your intentions. Are you genuinely trying to inform, or are you using information as a tool to control the narrative? Honesty and transparency build trust, while manipulation only breeds resentment and distrust in the long run. Overloading with information is a subtle yet powerful form of manipulation that preys on our cognitive limitations and emotional vulnerabilities. By recognizing this tactic, you can protect yourself from its effects, fostering clarity and accountability in your relationships and interactions. True understanding thrives on simplicity, not on a storm of unnecessary details. 33. Sympathy Ploy. The sympathy ploy is a manipulative tactic that leverages personal hardships to gain emotional leverage over others. By highlighting their struggles or suffering, the manipulator creates a narrative designed to evoke pity, compassion, or guilt, influencing the behavior of those around them. This isn't about genuine vulnerability or seeking support. It's about using sympathy as a tool to control. Picture a friend who constantly shares their tales of misfortune whenever you hesitate to meet their demands. They recount their struggles with vivid detail, their voice laced with despair, leaving you feeling like the villain for saying no. Even when you suspect they might be exaggerating or omitting key facts, their emotional display tugs at your heartstrings. You end up doing what they want, not because it's right, but because you feel obligated to ease their burden. In romantic relationships, the sympathy ploy can be even more insidious. A partner might use their past traumas or current hardships as a shield against accountability or a means to control decisions. When confronted about their actions, they deflect by revisiting their pain, shifting the focus from their behavior to their suffering. You find yourself tiptoeing around their feelings, prioritizing their emotional needs over your own, and tolerating actions you'd never accept under normal circumstances. The emotional manipulation of the sympathy ploy lies in its ability to blur boundaries. Compassion is a natural and admirable response to someone else's pain, but manipulators exploit this instinct to bend others to their will. They know that empathy can be a powerful motivator, and they weaponize it to elicit favors, forgiveness, or compliance. The toll of this tactic is profound. Over time, you may feel emotionally drained, resentful, or even guilty for questioning their hardships. The constant demand for your sympathy and support can overshadow your own needs, leaving you feeling like a secondary character in your own life. Recognizing the sympathy ploy requires a clear-eyed assessment of patterns. Is this person's hardship a consistent theme whenever they want something from you? Do they make genuine efforts to improve their situation, or do they seem content to remain in a state of need? True vulnerability seeks connection and support, while manipulative vulnerability seeks control. To counter the sympathy ploy, practice compassionate detachment. Acknowledge their hardships without allowing them to dictate your actions. Respond with kindness, but maintain your boundaries. I'm sorry you're going through this, but I can't do this for you. Remember, setting limits doesn't make you unkind, it makes you healthy. If you find yourself using the sympathy ploy, reflect on your behavior. Are you sharing your struggles to connect with others or to manipulate them? While it's natural to seek empathy, relying on it to control others erodes trust and damages relationships. True connection comes from mutual respect, not from guilt-induced compliance. The sympathy ploy preys on compassion, turning it into a tool for manipulation. By recognizing and addressing this tactic, you can protect your emotional well-being and foster relationships built on authenticity and mutual care, not on the burden of manufactured guilt. 34. Pretending to forget. Pretending to forget is a manipulative tactic where someone claims forgetfulness as a way to evade responsibilities, commitments, or accountability. By feigning a lapse in memory, they create a convenient excuse to shirk their duties, leaving others to pick up the slack or face the consequences. It's not a matter of genuine forgetfulness. It's a deliberate act designed to avoid the discomfort of obligation. Imagine a co-worker who forgets to complete their share of a project or conveniently can't recall an important deadline. Each time you confront them, they respond with a sheepish smile and a nonchalant, "Oh, I totally forgot. My bad." At first, you may give them the benefit of the doubt, but over time, a pattern emerges. Their forgetfulness only seems to occur when something inconvenient or unpleasant needs to be done. Their innocent oversight leaves you scrambling to cover for them, all while they avoid taking any real responsibility. In personal relationships, this tactic can be equally frustrating. A partner might forget an important date, a promise they made, or even a recurring responsibility like paying bills or completing household tasks. When confronted, they respond with a mixture of charm and defensiveness. "I can't believe I forgot. You know how bad my memory is." Their forgetfulness feels like an excuse, but their casual dismissal makes you question whether you're overreacting. Meanwhile, the burden falls on you to compensate for their mistakes. The emotional manipulation behind pretending to forget is subtle but effective. It shifts the focus from their lack of follow-through to your reaction. You're left feeling frustrated and perhaps even guilty for holding them accountable. They create an illusion of innocence, painting their forgetfulness as an unintentional flaw rather than a deliberate avoidance of responsibility. The toll of this behavior is significant. Over time, you may feel like you can't rely on the person, which erodes trust and breeds resentment. Their repeated forgetfulness forces you to take on more than your fair share, leaving you emotionally and mentally exhausted. To address this tactic, start by observing patterns. Is their forgetfulness consistent when it comes to certain tasks or commitments? Do they show remorse or take steps to prevent it from happening again, or do they simply shrug it off? Genuine forgetfulness is occasional and followed by corrective action. Manipulative forgetfulness is habitual and convenient. When confronting someone who pretends to forget, approach them calmly but firmly. I've noticed that you've forgotten this several times now. It's important, and I need you to take responsibility for it. Set clear boundaries and expectations, and don't let their charm or excuses derail the conversation. If the pattern continues, consider whether the relationship, professional or personal, can thrive without mutual accountability. If you recognize this behavior in yourself, ask why. Are you avoiding responsibility out of fear, laziness, or a desire to escape confrontation? Pretending to forget may seem harmless in the moment, but over time it damages relationships and undermines trust. Taking ownership of your actions, even when it's uncomfortable, is essential for building lasting connections. Pretending to forget is a subtle yet powerful form of manipulation, cloaked in the guise of innocence. By recognizing and addressing this behavior, you can foster accountability in yourself and others, ensuring that responsibilities are shared fairly and trust is preserved. True accountability requires honesty, not the convenient shield of, "I forgot." 35. Selective truth-telling. Selective truth-telling is a manipulative tactic that involves sharing just enough information to appear honest while deliberately withholding critical details that would change the story. It's not an outright lie, but a strategic omission designed to mislead, distort perceptions, or gain an unfair advantage. This cunning approach thrives on half-truths, leaving others to fill in the blanks with assumptions that serve the manipulator's agenda. Imagine a colleague who updates the team on a project, proudly announcing its progress. They highlight the milestones achieved, but fail to mention the looming challenges or missed deadlines. To everyone listening, they sound competent and proactive. But later, when the truth inevitably surfaces, the damage is already done, and accountability feels elusive because they technically didn't lie. In personal relationships, selective truth-telling can be just as insidious. A partner might admit to spending time with a friend, but conveniently omit that it was someone they've had romantic history with. When questioned, they respond with a defensive, "I told you I went out with a friend." Their partial truth creates a false sense of transparency while concealing the full context, leaving you feeling confused, suspicious, or betrayed when the rest of the story comes to light. The emotional impact of this tactic is profound. It preys on trust, the cornerstone of any healthy relationship. By manipulating what's shared and what's hidden, the perpetrator undermines your ability to make informed decisions or respond appropriately to situations. You may feel a nagging sense that something is off, but struggle to pinpoint exactly what, leading to self-doubt and frustration. Selective truth-telling is particularly damaging because it allows the manipulator to maintain a veneer of honesty. They can claim they've been truthful while sidestepping the consequences of full disclosure. It's a calculated move that shifts the burden onto you to uncover the missing pieces, all while they maintain plausible deniability. To recognize this tactic, pay attention to patterns. Do they consistently share just enough to avoid scrutiny while leaving out key details? Are their stories incomplete or overly vague when accountability is at stake? Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it's worth probing further. When addressing selective truth-telling, call attention to the omissions directly. I appreciate what you've shared, but I feel like there's more to the story. Is there something you're not telling me? Approach the conversation calmly but assertively, and be prepared to hold them accountable for withholding information. If you find yourself engaging in selective truth-telling, reflect on your motives. Are you trying to protect yourself from discomfort, avoid confrontation, or manipulate someone else's perception? While it may feel easier in the moment, this tactic erodes trust and damages relationships over time. True honesty requires the courage to share the whole truth, even when it's difficult. Selective truth-telling is a subtle yet powerful form of deception. By mastering the art of omission, manipulators create a distorted reality that benefits them while keeping others in the dark. Recognizing and addressing this behavior, whether in others or yourself, is essential for fostering trust, accountability, and authenticity in relationships. In the end, partial truths are still half lies, and only the full truth can build lasting connections. 36. Playing the savior. Playing the savior is a manipulative tactic that thrives on creating chaos only to swoop in with solutions, painting the manipulator as a hero. By engineering problems or exacerbating existing ones, they position themselves as indispensable, the one person who can fix what's broken. It's a calculated ploy, designed not just to solve issues, but to assert control, demand gratitude, and build dependency. Imagine a manager at work who intentionally withholds critical information from the team only to save the day when deadlines are at risk. They present themselves as the sole problem solver, basking in the praise and admiration of others. What their team doesn't realize is that the crisis was carefully orchestrated, a mess created just so they could clean it up. In personal relationships, this tactic often manifests in more subtle but equally damaging ways. A partner might create financial issues, overspending recklessly or failing to manage household expenses, only to step in later with a plan to fix everything. They turn the resolution into a spectacle of their competence, demanding recognition for solving the very problems they caused. Over time, this pattern leaves their partner feeling powerless and indebted, as if they can't manage life without the savior. The emotional toll of this manipulation is profound. At first, you might feel grateful or even relieved, believing the person genuinely wants to help. But as the pattern repeats, unease grows. You start to sense the connection between their actions and the chaos that seems to follow them. You feel trapped in a cycle of dependency, where their help feels more like control disguised as kindness. This tactic also thrives on emotional manipulation. The savior often demands gratitude, using phrases like, "After everything I've done for you, how can you question me?" This guilt-laden rhetoric makes it difficult to confront their behavior without feeling ungrateful or unreasonable. 2. Recognize this tactic. Look for patterns where problems seem to appear conveniently, only to be resolved by the same person who benefits from the resolution. Do they amplify issues unnecessarily or seem to thrive in situations where they're the only one who can help? Are you left feeling overly reliant on them, as if they're the glue holding everything together? Confronting this behavior requires assertiveness and clear boundaries. Acknowledge their contributions, but call out the unnecessary chaos. I appreciate your help, but I've noticed that some of these situations could have been avoided entirely. Let's work together to address the root cause, rather than constantly fixing the fallout. This approach shifts focus from their heroic efforts to their role in creating the problem. If you find yourself playing the savior, reflect on why. Are you seeking validation or control? Is your self-worth tied to being needed? Acknowledging this tendency can help you break free from the cycle and cultivate healthier relationships based on mutual support rather than dependency. Playing the savior is a deceptive dance of control and chaos. By recognizing and addressing this behavior, you can protect your autonomy and emotional well-being. True support doesn't thrive on creating crises to solve. It seeks to empower others, not Make them feel indebted. Real heroes don't manufacture problems, they prevent them in the first place. 37. Using silence as punishment. Silence, when used as a weapon, can cut deeper than words. It's a manipulative tactic that thrives on uncertainty, designed to provoke anxiety and reassert control over a situation or relationship. By withholding communication, the manipulator forces the other person to scramble for answers, question their actions, and often beg for resolution. It's a subtle form of emotional dominance that leaves the victim feeling powerless and destabilized. Imagine reaching out to someone you care about only to be met with a deafening void. Your texts go unanswered, your calls ignored. At first, you assume they're busy, but as hours turn into days, the silence becomes unbearable. What did you do wrong? Why won't they respond? The lack of clarity breeds self-doubt and desperation, pulling you into a spiral of overthinking. In relationships, this tactic can be especially cruel. A partner might suddenly go silent after an argument, refusing to acknowledge your attempts to reconcile. The message is clear, even if unspoken. You're being punished, and I hold the power to decide when this ends. It's not just about the absence of words, it's about the emotional void left in their wake, a deliberate act to make you feel unworthy of their attention. The manipulator's silence serves multiple purposes. It shifts the focus away from their actions and onto your response. Instead of addressing the issue at hand, you're left apologizing for things you might not have done, just to break the tension. Their silence also creates an imbalance of power, where they hold the key to resolution, and you're left waiting, anxious, and unsure of what to do next. Over time, this behavior erodes trust and self-esteem. You start walking on eggshells, afraid to say or do anything that might trigger another round of silence. The emotional toll is heavy. Feelings of abandonment, confusion, and an overwhelming sense of inadequacy. The silence becomes a reminder of your perceived failings, even when the fault lies with the manipulator. Recognizing this tactic requires understanding the intent behind the silence. Is it genuinely about needing space, or is it a calculated move to make you feel small? Healthy communication involves clear boundaries and explanations, not prolonged silence meant to punish or control. To address this behavior, start by acknowledging the impact it has on you. When you go silent, it leaves me feeling confused and anxious. I want to understand what's wrong so we can work through it together. If they continue to withhold communication, set firm boundaries. I respect your need for space, but prolonged silence isn't healthy for either of us. Let me know when you're ready to talk, but I won't let this pattern continue. If you find yourself using silence as a weapon, ask yourself why. Are you avoiding confrontation, trying to assert control? While silence might feel like an easy escape, it creates long-term damage to trust and intimacy. Consider replacing the silence with honest, open communication, even if it's uncomfortable. Silence should be a space for reflection, not a tool for punishment. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and understanding, not power plays disguised as quiet. By addressing and dismantling this tactic, you can foster a dynamic where communication heals instead of harms. 38. Black and white thinking. Black and white thinking is a manipulative tactic that reduces complex situations into false dichotomies, forcing you to choose between two extremes. It thrives on the illusion of absolutes, leaving no room for nuance or compromise. By framing the situation as all or nothing, the manipulator corners you into compliance, making their desired outcome seem like the only logical choice. Imagine a partner who says, "If you really love me, you'd do this. For me, otherwise, you don't care about me at all." Suddenly, the conversation isn't about whether their request is reasonable. It's about proving your love. The emotional weight of such a statement leaves you feeling trapped, as if the only way to validate your feelings is to agree, no matter the cost to yourself. In workplace scenarios, this tactic often appears as ultimatums. You're either fully committed to this project or you're not a team player. There's no space to express legitimate concerns or propose alternatives. You're left with a false choice: comply and overextend yourself, or risk being labeled as uncooperative. The power of black and white thinking lies in its ability to oversimplify. Life is rarely as absolute as these manipulations suggest, but the emotional pressure makes it difficult to think critically. The manipulator's framing exploits your desire to be seen as good, loyal, or competent, steering you toward their preferred outcome without addressing your needs or perspectives. Over time, this tactic creates an environment of control and dependency. You begin to second-guess your own judgments, fearing that any resistance will paint you as the bad choice. The manipulator's narrative becomes your reality, eroding your confidence in navigating complex situations with your own reasoning. 2. Counter black and white thinking. Take a step back and examine the situation critically. Ask yourself, are these really the only two options? Often the answer lies in the gray areas that the manipulator deliberately obscures. Respond by challenging the false dichotomy. I don't see this as an either-or situation. Let's explore other possibilities that work for both of us. If someone insists on presenting only extremes, hold your ground. Refuse to be cornered by their framing and assert your right to consider all angles before making a decision. Healthy relationships, whether personal or professional, are built on collaboration, not ultimatums. If you find yourself using black and white thinking, consider why you're pushing for absolutes. Is it a fear of losing control, a reluctance to face complexity? Recognizing this tendency allows you to embrace more balanced approaches, fostering dialogue instead of division. Life isn't a series of rigid binaries. It's a spectrum of possibilities. By rejecting black and white thinking, you reclaim your ability to make choices that reflect your values, priorities, and true self, rather than succumbing to the manipulator's oversimplified narrative. 39. Triangulation in relationships. Triangulation is a manipulative strategy that thrives on introducing a third party into a relationship dynamic to sow tension, jealousy, or insecurity. It's a calculated move designed to keep you off balance, questioning your worth, and vying for the manipulator's attention or approval. This tactic isn't about solving problems, it's about maintaining control through division and emotional chaos. Imagine a romantic partner who constantly mentions an ex, highlighting their qualities in ways that make you feel inadequate. They were always so supportive of my career. I miss having that. The subtle comparison doesn't just sting, it leaves you questioning whether you measure up. You start feeling like you need to prove your value, and the relationship becomes less about mutual respect and more about earning their elusive approval. In friendships, triangulation can manifest as gossip or selective sharing of information. One friend might tell you, "I heard Sarah doesn't think you're reliable," then tell Sarah, "I don't think they trust you anymore." By pitting two people against each other, the manipulator remains the center of attention, the so-called peacemaker, while deepening the divide they created. Triangulation isn't confined to personal relationships, it happens in workplaces too. A boss might pit colleagues against each other with statements like, "John thinks your work isn't up to par, but I know you can prove him wrong." The seeds of rivalry and doubt are planted, ensuring loyalty to the manipulator while team dynamics crumble. The emotional toll of triangulation is immense. You feel insecure, unsteady, and constantly on edge, as if you're always competing for validation or trying to repair fractured relationships. The manipulator revels in this chaos, feeding off the power they hold over your emotional state and the connections you value. To counter triangulation, start by recognizing the pattern. Ask yourself, why is this person introducing a third party into our dynamic? What do they gain from this tension? Once you see the manipulation, refuse to engage. Instead, address the issue directly with the other involved party, bypassing the manipulator's control. I heard this, and I want to clear the air with you directly. Set boundaries with the manipulator and assertively reject their attempts to create division. You might say, I'm not comfortable with this comparison. Let's focus on what's happening between us, not anyone else. Refuse to play into their narrative and encourage open, honest communication in all your relationships. If you find yourself using triangulation, take a moment to reflect on your motives. Are you afraid of losing control, trying to secure attention or loyalty? Recognizing these tendencies can help you break free from this toxic pattern and build healthier, more genuine connections. Triangulation is a destructive tactic that exploits relationships for control and emotional gain. By identifying and addressing this behavior, you can protect yourself from the manipulator's web and nurture relationships based on trust, respect, and transparency, free from the shadow of unnecessary rivalry and doubt. 40. Exaggeration of self-importance. Exaggeration of self-importance is a manipulative tactic where someone inflates their own value and contributions, making others feel that they cannot succeed or thrive without them. It's an emotionally charged strategy designed to create dependence, placing the manipulator on a pedestal while leaving others feeling small, insecure, and desperate for their approval or support. Imagine a colleague who constantly brags about how their input is the key to the team's success. Without me, this project would have fallen apart. You'd all be lost without my expertise. These words are not just boastful. They're designed to make you feel like your own contributions don't matter, that the success of the team hinges entirely on their presence. The emotional weight of this manipulation creates an environment where you begin to doubt your own abilities, unsure if you can truly succeed without the manipulator's involvement. In personal relationships, the exaggeration of self-importance can manifest as a partner who claims their efforts are the foundation of the relationship. You wouldn't even be happy without me. I do everything for you, emotionally, financially, socially. This constant assertion of their indispensable role wears down your confidence, making you feel like you owe everything to them. It's an insidious tactic that twists love and affection into a debt you can never repay, creating a cycle where you're forever indebted to their perceived greatness. In the workplace, this manipulation can be seen when someone overstates their contributions to a project, making others feel like they cannot function without their guidance. They create a narrative where the team or company's success is directly tied to their involvement. I'm the only one who knows how to make this work. You'd never get anywhere without my direction. Over time, the manipulator's ego becomes the lens through which others see themselves, unable to imagine accomplishing anything without the supposed mastermind leading the way. The emotional toll of exaggerating one's self-importance is immense. It breeds a deep sense of inadequacy in others who begin to question their value and capabilities. What should be a collaborative environment, whether in work, friendship, or love, becomes a place where one person's inflated ego diminishes everyone else's sense of worth. To counteract this manipulation, start by recognizing the patterns of exaggeration. Ask yourself, is this person truly irreplaceable, or are they just making themselves feel that way to gain control over the situation? Once you see through the facade, reclaim your sense of self-worth. Stand firm in your value and contributions, and remind yourself that no one is indispensable. Everyone brings something unique to the table, including you. If someone insists on inflating their importance to manipulate you, assertively challenge their narrative. I appreciate your help, but I believe we all play a role in this. Your contributions are valuable, but so are mine, and I don't need to rely on anyone to succeed. Reaffirm your own worth and refuse to buy into the idea that success hinges solely on their presence. If you find yourself exaggerating your self-importance, reflect on your need for validation. Why do you feel the need to elevate yourself at the expense of others? Are you seeking control or reassurance? Acknowledging these patterns allows you to grow beyond this behavior, cultivating healthier relationships based on mutual respect and recognition. Exaggeration of self-importance is a manipulation tactic that undermines the value of others while inflating the manipulator's sense of self. By recognizing and confronting this behavior, you protect your own confidence, ensuring that your success is not defined by someone else's exaggerated ego, but by your own skills, contributions, and worth. Thanks for everyone here. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with others who are eager to transform. Your likes play a huge role in helping us reach a wider audience, so don't forget to show your support. The more likes and shares we get, the more this channel will grow, and together we can make a bigger impact. And if you're craving more, be sure to check out our channel membership for exclusive content and perks designed just for you.